And you are watching / listening to another edition of Blitz. I appreciate our buddy Nick for making the new and updated intro with no, Zach Wilson bombs to Corey Davis and things like that. But obviously have a huge guest on the show, Mr. Michael Nania, with his 40,000 million Twitter followers and how much he's killing it right now on Jets X Factor. So we are blessed to be with Michael Nania, and we'll be joined by Sabo in a little bit. Michael, what's up, man?
Well, I appreciate the intro. I don't think it's that much of a privilege that I'm on, but it's definitely flattering.
I'm excited to have you guys on, and when Sabo comes in a little bit, and just kind of get your guys feeling on the off season and see where we stand with the draft and with Rodgers and how far this roster has come. Like I was just talking to a Buffalo Jets fan. We do a podcast together, and we had the days of, the Jamal Adamses and David Harrises and these guys who were like, these premium players at not premium positions. And now we're arguing over having too many defensive linemen instead of bringing up John Abraham for 10 years straight. So it's quite fun where we're at with the roster. So I kind of want to recap, and then we have plenty more to get into for the rest of the offseason in terms of Jets X Factor content, which I was going to congratulate all three of us at the same time, but Sabo's on here. So a nice congratulations to you, Nania, as well. As Sabo when he comes here eventually for the number one Jets website in the world at this current moment. So yes. we appreciate all the support. And I want to say that again, because now I have you here as well. So with that being said, we're going to get right into some of the roster talk. We're going to go through the positions. We're going to go through the draft a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about the schedule release. And then Nania and Sabo are going to bounce off at 7:30 because they are both diehard Knicks fans. So they're going to go watch the game. And then I'll be here with you guys for like an hour and a half, just taking chats and talking with you guys as well. So, Nania, this question has been asked 1,000 times, so it feels like it's almost like stupid to ask it at this point. But how does it feel to have Aaron Rodgers as your starting quarterback at this current moment?
It's definitely set in a lot since he's come into the building, and you're seeing the same practice videos that the Jets would post every single year, but now you put Aaron Rodgers in there instead of Zach Wilson. I mean, we had hopes for Zach Wilson, but to see him doing like all the typical Jets stuff that we're used to, and like the trailer for One Jets Drive or whatever it is that they put out, for him to be in all those social media, Twitter videos, just answering the little questions and making jokes and stuff, it's really set in like, wow, he's actually here. And the fact that he's embraced it so much and had so much energy and been so invested, it just seems like one of the guys. That's been the most exciting part for me, because you go back to the beginning of this process, like January, February, when we first started talking about this being a possibility. One of the biggest concerns, definitely for me, and I think for some other people, was, would they be getting a dialed in Aaron Rodgers, or are they just getting him to be, because he wants to cash his final check or play one more year? But it really does seem like they're getting a motivated Aaron Rodgers who does want to be here. And that's the most exciting part of it.
How much of a difference do you think that actually makes, like Rodgers being pumped up to be here? Because you have some people who are saying, okay, well, you have the OC from Green Bay, you have some familiarity with the players, and again, for the people who are going to lose their mind about Cobb, we had to have a whole different conversation about that one. But so there's people kind of like downplaying him not being here for camp, but once he is, and Jets fans are always going to spin it depending on what's exactly happening, but it really does mean a lot, like just for the locker room, just for the camaraderie. And I know maybe I put a little bit too much into that, which for a film guy, maybe that doesn't make a lot of sense, but I really do put a lot into the locker room. And that's one of the things we talked about with CJ Uzomah, like that means something to the locker room. It really does. So how much does it really mean? Like, does it really impact us? Is it really that big of a difference? Or are we just kind of blowing smoke up the Jets' ass right now because we've been watching the likes of Josh McCown and Bryce Petty and all this stuff, and now we have Aaron Rodgers, so we're going to blow up anything they do?
I mean, I think there's some of both, because it's not, at the end of the day, it just comes down to what happens on the field. Are you winning your matchups, executing, all that stuff, more so than, off-field hype and intangibles. But I do think that it matters to an extent, because, I mean, Rodgers usually in Green Bay had not been showing up to practices at this point of the offseason. And there was an assumption that could happen this year as well, when you were looking at the trade discussions dragging out, and we were talking about, will this go up to training camp, that being the true deadline? He doesn't need to show up before then, but it got done, and he showed up to the building as soon as he possibly could. And I do think there's a lot of, positives to that. There are some guys here that he's familiar with, we know they got Lazard and Cobb and
Mm-hmm.
Hackett as the OC. So, there is a strong degree of familiarity, but at the same time, he's still got to get to know all these O linemen, all the other receivers he hasn't played with. And I think the fact that he's taking the time to get to know these guys both on and off the field does have a good degree of value.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And now with that, the whole Rodgers thing, the trade, the actual compensation, and I know this has been talked about a lot, but again, I do want to get these guys' thoughts because some people may only watch the YouTube stream and not necessarily watch CYJ and all that stuff, which you should watch.
You should
listen, subscribe to the Cool Your Jets with Nania and Mr. Ben Blessington. But some people might
Logo
not.
Right here.
There you go. If you duck a little bit, you see the CYJ. But yeah. So what are your feelings on the overall trade compensation with Aaron Rodgers?
I mean, I think it's next year's first round pick that is probably the most significant, or a conditional second round pick that is the most significant difference compared to what we were talking about. But for the most part, it was a similar structure. I mean, second round pick this year, that was what we were assuming, not the first round pick, which Packers fans wanted, and we always knew they weren't going to get. But next year's pick, I think I was more expecting something along the lines of maybe base third round pick, and the incentives would be based upon, the playoff success, like AFC Championship, Super Bowl, win Super Bowl, stuff like that. That's how it would be upgraded to, second round, first round. But instead you get basically a guaranteed first round pick unless he gets injured. So that was more than I expected, but I think what balances it out is the fact that just reading the signs, and we don't know for sure, but it looks like the Jets are going to get a second year of Rodgers. And if that's the case, then, the price is worth paying, I think. If he only plays the 1 year, unless they win the Super Bowl, which in that case, it doesn't matter. But if they don't win the Super Bowl, he plays 1 year, then it's going to hurt to not have a first round pick next year. So if they can get the second year of Rodgers, I think it's definitely a fair package for sure. But it depends on that, I think.
Yeah, I think there's a conversation to be had. Like, will it be worth it at the end of the day? And was the process good about getting, or getting the package that they had to trade? Like, you could say, okay, at any point, whether he plays a year or two, did they trade too much? Yeah, they probably traded too much. Like, at the end of the day, they didn't really have a trade partner. I do think they gave up a little bit too much. At the end of the day, if he plays 1 year and wins a Super Bowl, who gives a crap? But with that being said, they still could have done better in the trade. If he plays 2 years and they make 2 conference championship games, 2 wild cards, divisional, Super Bowl, hopefully. Obviously, it's a great trade, but with that being said, did they have to give up as much as they did? So I think they give up too much, while also acknowledging that we're probably not going to care in 2 years after watching Aaron Rodgers take snaps about who the first round draft pick is. Obviously, hoping it's at 32, but most likely, maybe 32 or late 20s. So it's not really going to matter too much. But I think that's the simplest way. Like, people talk about it from so many different avenues. Like, it'll be great if he plays two years with the Jets, but at the same point, they might have given up too much. So it is what it is. But now, in terms of Rodgers, it does seem like he's going to play 2 years. Some say 3. If I had to bet, I would bank on it being 2 years, which is awesome, because at first we definitely assumed it would be 1. But seeing how he's rejuvenized and re-energized and all this stuff, it's definitely nice to see. He's been to like 1,000 Knicks games, and he didn't go to a Devils game, which is a little bit concerning to me, but it is what it is.
How Lazard went, he committed Rangers treason.
Yeah, he went to a Rangers game. The Rangers lost. He goes to the Devils game, and they lose 6-1 or whatever the score was the other day. It was absolutely gross. But before we get off of Rodgers, too, this is something I should have asked you before. Like, it is so nice just to, and Green Bean's in here, and hello, Green Bean, if he's still in here. He knows, like, creating content for how long you've been. You started. Well, I almost confused with Ben. I almost said you started with Kyle Fahey, but you didn't. But you've still been doing it for quite a while.
Yeah.
And it is so nice to be able to watch an Aaron Rodgers, and we haven't even watched him in a Jets uniform, really, like actual film. But it's so nice to have him and know we're going to be able to break down him instead of, again, the likes of Bryce Petty, and we didn't get to break down Hackenberg because he didn't even really play. But it is so nice to be able to break this guy down. So I'm definitely excited. But moving to the first round, because it kind of intertwines, obviously, with the pick. The Jets moved from 13 to 15. Now people are saying, they're obviously pissed the Jets moved from 13 to 15 because, now they get jumped at 14. They got Broderick Jones. The Jets might have wanted Broderick Jones, all that stuff. And I get that argument. Now realistically, if the Steelers really like Broderick Jones that much, if the Jets were at 13, what was stopping the Steelers from trading up to 12? Like, you don't know if that could have happened, so I'm not just going to like pen that in that wouldn't have happened if they didn't trade from 13 to 15. But with that being said, do you think they got sniped a little bit with Broderick Jones? Do you think they really wanted him? And then obviously we can transition that into the actual Will McDonald pick and how he fits.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure if I buy that. There's a rumor that the Patriots did actually make that trade just to spite the Jets, let the Steelers get him. Because out of the top tackles, he was the one guy who I wasn't totally sure if he is a player the Jets would pick, just because of because the reason we wanted a tackle is to put him in there right away and potentially be an upgrade over Dwayne Brown, compete with Becton, and help them win this year. And Jones, out of those top guys, was generally considered the one who needed the most work and was more of the long-term upside pick. And then there was also some, I think, some off-field stuff as well. So considering those things, he was probably the least likely out of the top tackles based on the Jets' previous draft picks to be the one that they would pick. So I'm not totally sure they would have picked him. There's definitely a good chance that they might have. But I'm not 100% sold on it. So I'm not sure. But the fact that they picked Will McDonald, despite, edge is not the biggest need in this roster, far from it, I think just shows how much they liked him as an overall prospect relative to the other players on the board.
Yeah, and like you said, I wasn't the biggest fan of Broderick Jones. Out of the guys I watched, he was probably my fourth out of the four tackle, like the big four tackles. Originally, it was the big three, but it kind of turned into a big four with Darnell Wright kind of slipping in there in the later weeks towards the draft. But yeah, I didn't love him, so I was actually sitting there at it was 14 with the Pats on the clock, right? And I was sitting there, kind of like I kind of want him to go because I don't really want Broderick Jones. Now, obviously, it'd be better for the Jets to have multiple options, so I wasn't so mad about him going off the board. Now, obviously, when he did go off the board, I was thinking much more of Kalijah Kancey, who has historic figures in terms of like negatives, in terms of like his, the short arms, the short height, and all that stuff. So he would be a really big outlier if he worked out. So I wasn't, and he's very redundant with the Jets skill set. Like if you had him, you have Quentin Jefferson, who's stopping the run. Solomon Thomas isn't that guy either. So I didn't love the idea of drafting him. And then past that, it was JSN. But with JSN, and listen, we'll get to the Will McDonald pick overall, but just kind of going through the other guys. JSN, now he could be a better player than Corey Davis in a few years. Is he going to be better this year? Obviously, you can't say that, and you're hoping Corey Davis is healthy, but you're almost addressing a strength where you're going to have to, like, at that point, you're going to cut Corey Davis, right? Like, you're not going to draft JSN and he's going to be the fourth or fifth receiver. So you're probably cutting Corey Davis. You're filling up a spot and then cutting a guy who doesn't make a ton of sense. And obviously you say that for McDonald as well. But those are the guys I was thinking. Obviously they don't go with those guys. They draft Will McDonald, who, this isn't necessarily a strong class, but the class was at least strong with defensive linemen. So you could say, okay, they got some value there. And I think the conversation we're about to have with Will McDonald isn't necessarily, okay, I don't like Will McDonald as a player. It's more about how he fits in the snap percentage, because to a certain point, I get wanting to have rushers who are rested, but you had Huff, who played 17% of snaps last year, I believe. So I'm very nervous to say numbers around a guy like Michael Nania, but I believe it's 17%. I believe
I'm pulling it up just to make sure we get it right.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, idiot, it was 17.5. No, it's like 17. JJ and Clemens were both 27%. So at what point does Will McDonald, and let's be generous to Will McDonald, how much being generous, or not even being generous, if you had to guess, what's the snap percentage of Will McDonald this year? Like, just again, off the cuff, nobody's going to hold you. There's going to be people who hold you to it, but off the cuff, what percentage of snaps does he play?
Say 25, 30, and also okay. I just pulled it up. So in the games they played, not counting the ones that Huff played 20, Jermaine played 34%. So I think it's going to be right in that range. So that's really the big point with this pick is, we love the player, but this is now, the Jets love the player. I do love the player, but that's up for debate. But this is now the second straight pick they've spent on this position that is a premium position, but it's also one where the snaps are distributed amongst a lot of different players, and the Jets are as rotation heavy as anyone in the league. So that's premium assets back to back, including a trade up last year with Jermaine. And now both these guys are probably going to be playing less than a third of the snaps. So you just wonder about the resource allocation. Are you spending it wisely? So that is a fair question, but at the same time, I think from a win now perspective, it is very cool to have that much depth on the defensive line. It is really, there are not many teams that can, if any, that can compare to the depth that the Jets have. So that will help them in the present. It's just long term. Are you going to get enough out of these two guys? Are they eventually going to develop into, full-time starters to where they can justify what you invested into them?
Yeah, it was definitely nice to see like the Jets defensive line up there. I think they were ranking. I'm not sure what site it was, like Pro Football Focus, whatever it was, who were ranking the defensive lines, like the Jets, Niners, and Eagles. So that was definitely nice to be up there. But again, like if Will McDonald plays 25% of the snaps, I get he'll be rested and all that stuff, and will create pressure and havoc and all that. But how effective does he have to be at 25%? To say he's more valuable than, let's say, and I'm not saying that there was a safety available at that point, but a starting free safety, who's going to play 100% of the reps. So that's the question with Will McDonald. Now, going into next year, I think it's a situation where you have Lawson, you have Huff, and maybe they've re-signed one of those guys next year, but not both are back. So McDonald will make his impact in future years. But it'll just be interesting to see how they dip up the snaps, and again how effective he really is year one. Now, part of it with Will McDonald is, as soon as they drafted him, I saw him as a late first round guy or early second, just based on like mock drafts and all that stuff. If you see his name pop up, you don't really pay attention to it because the Jets don't need a DN, right? Obviously, they draft him because we didn't do any research into him. But I was thinking immediately, okay, they're going to cut Lawson. Like they have to cut Lawson at this point. They have 37,000 guys. I already thought they were going to cut Lawson before they drafted Will McDonald. So it's a foregone conclusion they're cutting Lawson. Doesn't seem like they are. So is the only way this makes sense. And again, so for me, I think it makes, if we were a team who was like 6 and let's say 11 or whatever, like that's the year we thought we were going to have, I get drafting guys for maybe the future because this year doesn't really matter anyway. But there's the argument like, hey, we want the guys who are going to impact this year. So again, that starting linebacker, safety, tackle, whatever it might have been, who might have played more snaps than Will McDonald. Do they make more impact this year when we really are going for it versus, okay, stashing a guy when you're actually going to be a good team? So that's an argument as well. But is one of the only ways this makes sense is if they kick JFM inside on pass rush downs, because if you have JFM outside, you have him at 13 to 15 million-ish dollars a year, right? You have Lawson, you have Huff, you have JJ, even with JFM moving inside potentially for pass rush downs. Let's say it is Lawson and McDonald on that third down rep. Well, then you have a first round pick sitting on the bench, and you have you have a first round pick on the bench. And you have Huff you just paid sitting on the bench in that scenario. So does it only make sense if they move JFM inside on more pass rush downs, which is why he got paid. Like initially he played more inside for the Jets on pass rush downs, made a big impact, got paid, and then he obviously flexed out more to defensive end, where I think he's playing like 2/3 of the snap at D end. I'm not sure exactly, but I would like to see maybe closer to like even split now with Will McDonald added to the group. So
yeah, I think that what you just said is probably what we're going to get. I don't think we'll see a full-time JFM inside because at this point they did, by signing Al Woods and they got Quentin Jefferson earlier, they do have enough guys inside to have that 4-man rotation that they want to have like they had last year. But I do think we could see more interior snaps for JFM because those two guys who they added, whether it's Jefferson or Woods, they're both very one-sided players. Like Woods is your rundown guy. You don't want him rushing the quarterback. And Jefferson, pass rusher, you don't want him playing the run. So considering that, I think their snap counts aren't going to be too high and they're going to be a lot more situational. And that could leave open more snaps for JFM to move inside, which could open up some edge snaps. But even at that point, like you said, it's still very crowded. And someone out of all these players, if not multiple of them, are going to be playing much fewer snaps than their production says they should be playing. And like we wanted Bryce Huff to potentially move up into a bigger role this year, maybe even cut Lawson and let Huff get the chance to cook as a starter. But that's definitely not going to happen now. And now you have Jermaine, who's probably not going to get a huge boost of snaps. Clemens isn't going to play more, and McDonald is going to be in there playing a very low number for a first-round pick. So it's a lot of mouths to feed, and there are going to be guys who aren't getting as many snaps as we'd like. But you just hope that the low snap counts that all these guys are playing can lead to better efficiency for all of them, and just consistently having well-rested guys on the field, and that needs to translate to production is the the bottom line, because not many teams in the league are going to be able to compare to the Jets, who can have, every time a guy's out there, he's been resting for so many snaps and he's just ready to go full throttle every single snap he's out there. The Jets are constantly going to be able to have 3-4 guys on the field who can do that, versus other teams to where they're playing a lot more snaps and they're not as well rested. That's a huge advantage. So you're hoping that even if each player is not playing as many snaps in total, that they can be better per snap because they're so well rested. So I think that's what they're going for.
Yeah, and I 100% hear that. But again, to a certain point, like if you're going to be paid a lot of money, you're expected to be effective even in a larger role. So that's the other side of that. Like, yes, Quentin Williams is very, very good. Or let's just say JFM. That's an easier example. He played like 58% of snaps. At what point are you expected to play more snaps and be effective because you're getting a lot of money to play that position? So that's a part of the argument as well with Will McDonald. Now moving, and we're not moving one for one through the draft. We're kind of going to move through the position groups. And again, Sabo should be joining us in a minute here, but running back position, we went into the offseason with obviously the Breece Hall injury, but him still being that like stud superstar, hopefully of the future. You have Michael Carter, who had a very, very down year last year. I know that people are going to say that, Mike LaFleur and the offensive line, all that stuff, he did not look like the same player. Even breaking tackles, regardless of the lanes that were not open for him, he did not look like the same guy he was last year. So you're hoping that he was battling some type of injury that maybe we didn't know about, and he bounces back last year, because going into the draft last year, we were talking about Michael Carter, like running back, not necessarily being in need. We thought he was an absolute stud of a running back too. And now, like based on last year, he was a rosterable running back, but that's about it last year. So you're hoping he bounces back. You had him, obviously had Zonovan Knight, who had a big couple of games and slowed down towards the end of the year. And then past that, we had a lot of questions, not a lot of questions, but we were kind of questioning who's going to be running back for. Eventually, obviously the Zeke Elliott rumors trickle into there, which wasn't going to happen. That didn't happen. You had Ty Johnson re-sign, which I didn't love because I'm one of those guys, just like, co-host Kyle, that loves going to the draft and drafting a running back every single year, rounds 5, 6, or 7, because so many of those guys hit. So grab one. Ty Johnson eventually gets cut for whatever reason. I still don't think we know about exactly why he was cut, but non-football injury, whatever it was. So he gets released. They draft Izzy. So what are your thoughts on the running back position, where we were, where we are now? And then we also have Robinson we could talk about, which is probably Joe Douglas's first failed trade that he's made. Robinson made no impact for the Jets, minus that game-winning drive against Buffalo, where some of his runs were a little bit overrated, to be completely honest, but I'm not going to get into that. So running back position, where we started, where we are now, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think it was an underrated need going into this offseason just because of Carter, like you said, down year last year. And Breece Hall, we have high hopes that he can come back, be 100%, but it's not guaranteed. You never know how someone is going to come back from that. So they did need to get some depth as much as they could. And, not as much as they could, because you had Knight. Carter's probably going to be making the team. And Hall he'll definitely be ready to play. We'll see just how good he is, how many carries he can handle. But to add another guy was key. And like you said, I think drafting a running back every year is a great strategy, because running backs, more than any other position, I feel like you can hit on it on the third day of the draft. And just the career arc of a running back, typically much more so than any other position, is they have a higher percentage of starting off their career being able to contribute immediately, and then they tail off quicker. So you want to take advantage of the rookie contract structure and just get a running back, run him into the ground for 4 years, and then get another one who's cheap and young and ready to do the same thing. So, and Joe Douglas has done that. This is the 4th draft in a row that he's taken running back, and none of them in the first round. So I think he's adhered to that pretty well, and it's a good cycle to keep up with. And with Izzy, I think he's a good guy to help them right away. I don't know if I trust him yet to, maybe be the guy who will be a bell cow if they need someone to step up and do that. If there's an injury to Breece, if he's not ready, because passing game still, I think he needs a lot of work. A lot of drops, pass blocking isn't good. And he hasn't even really caught many passes, but I think he's a great fit for the scheme, and he could be a home run threat as a rotational guy. So I could definitely see him bringing some of that long speed and explosiveness that, maybe Carter or Knight doesn't bring a ton of.
Yeah, that's kind of what's like missing with Brees potentially being out, and I would argue that Izzy's a little bit more explosive than Brees. He gets the top gear a little bit quicker, but Izzy's almost like the guy. I feel like Jets fans are gonna be frustrated with him at times. Like I feel like there's gonna be some games where he's getting 1, 2 yards, one, and then there's like that long 30-yard run. Like he's a little bit boomer bust with me. Like he's not overly creative in the backfield. I don't think he's really great at like breaking tackles and things like that. There's some times I want to see him use his power a little bit more and lower his helmet and drive for some extra yardage where he doesn't really do that. But his explosion is going to be taken advantage of. I know he wasn't the biggest pass catcher in college, but I don't think he's going to be running, angle routes and snake routes and all this thing. You could take a guy like that and run a screen for him and just hope he gets good blocking. So he's a guy who's explosive. I feel like he's going to take what's there, but he doesn't have the best vision. He doesn't have the best technique in terms of like pressing the line and making guys overcommit and cutting back and things like that. So he's not a guy who's going to like carry the offense, and no running backs really are in terms of like carrying the offensive line. But he's still an exciting player for a 5th round pick. So I'm excited for him. Now, in terms of this is a running back kind of conversation that people don't. I really haven't heard anybody talk about it or even bring it up. A lot of people are talking about. Like, I'm assuming at this point. We're going to assume that the Jets carry at the minimum 10 defensive linemen, right? At the minimum 10 offensive linemen at this point, right? I would not bet on 9 or 9 for either one of those. I would probably bet more on 11 than 9. But with that being said, it kind of comes into roster gymnastics, and this is where I'm getting with running back. Just wait. Keith Carter really liked to deploy fullbacks into his offense with the Titans. Do you see there being I know this isn't a huge thing, like there are probably 90 people in here, probably 88 of them don't care about this, but for the 2 people who do they bring in or do they keep a Bawden, or do you think they maybe have like a Jeremy Ruckert be that blocker? Maybe they bring in Mercedes Lewis, which people lose their minds about, and he's a pseudo like fullback. That's a big part of the Keith Carter offense for at least the portions that I watched. He was very heavy in 12 and 22 personnel as compared to the league. So do the Jets carry a fullback in it? Because that's something that people don't really think about when they're doing like their roster gymnastics, and you're seeing people start to predict like their early 53s and stuff like that. Nobody considers a fullback.
I think that's definitely on the table. I mean, like you said, it was a big part of what the Titans did with not only Keith Carter being there, but Todd Downing as well. So it could be on the table. And like you said, those offensive and defensive lines, I think, are going to have a ripple effect on other positions because they're both going to be very overloaded. As you said, I agree. 10 is probably the number at both of them, just because they're committed to so many guys at those 2 positions that they're just probably not going to cut. That they're both going to be really deep, and just the injury concerns with the O-line, I think, is going to lead to them favoring depth. So there are going to be a couple positions out there somewhere else that it might be a little bit lighter than you'll typically see. And maybe running back is one of those to fit in a fullback, like you said, or maybe you get a tight end who's playing that role. Maybe Ruckert fills in as a pseudo fullback because speaking about Ruckert, some of the stuff he did in that Dolphins game at the end of the year kind of would go in line with fullback responsibilities. Yeah. Some of the blocking that he displayed in that game. We know Zach Kuntz isn't going to do that if he makes the roster, but maybe Ruckert can fill in there. So I could see it, and maybe Michael Carter versus Knight is a battle. If they're really tight and they have to find someone to make. I don't think so. I think they'll both be on the team, but it's a wild card to potentially keep in mind.
So I'm gonna get to the chat for a second before Sabo jumps on, and we'll kind of shotgun him through the topics, and we'll get him caught up. What's up, Lloyd? We have Chris, who always thrown out the Narnia to you. Snowball, what's up, Braden? What's up, Mike? Sabo's not bringing on Wayne. I already answered that. What's up, Verge? We have Green Bean here as well, who says he listens to CYJ every week. Just the best.
Thank you.
So
appreciate it.
You have Green Bean out there who's showing some love for CYJ, which we appreciate. What's up? 19 NY Jets 69. I have a question. We have a question here too. I want to get to kind of transition a little bit. We have a question from Eric. Do you think there's anyone we could trade next year to get some more draft picks for the next draft, potentially getting us back into the first round? Like players on the team right now who they would trade. The only guys I really see as possible are maybe nobody's gonna take Whitehead, right? Like we're not gonna be able to get a pick for a Whitehead I think he's like $10 million he's owed, but we save $7.5 million if we cut him. Lawson, but he's at $15 million off a not very productive year. So players who are actually like realistic that we could trade for or trade for picks, I don't see anybody at this point. Unless the Jets were to, and this is like a big wild card, like maybe the Jets, and this is a conversation with Becton. No matter how well he plays this year, like, yeah, it would be great if he played well, but to the same point, is he going to ask for too much money if he plays well? And the Jets aren't willing to bank on 1 year out of 4, being his future prediction. So, that's something we have to think about with Becton as well. So maybe Becton, I don't know. I don't really see anybody getting traded. If they traded Becton, I'd be pretty pissed at this point as well, because you're trading him on really low at a low time.
Yeah, I don't think so. Anyone who has trade value is not getting traded as they go into the season. Maybe JFM after the season is someone who could be on the table, because going forward, Carl Lawson will be gone next year. Bryce Huff, that's up in the air. Next year is when you could start to look at, all right, it's time for JJ McDonald to take over and be, the full-time 3-down starters on the edge. So maybe trading JFM could play into that, because he's still signed for next year, but after this season, more likely than now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we'll bring on Sabo, because there he is. I didn't ask him if he's ready or not, but you better be ready, because now you're on.
What's up, fellas?
So Sabo, we already congratulated Michael. We talked about the Jets, or the Jets X Factor being number 1 in Jets world right now in terms of websites. So I congratulated him for that. So congratulations to you as well. Obviously, a huge part of it behind the scenes. So we'll move past that, though. We'll move past the pleasantries, because it's already 6:30. We're getting into it. Next game in an hour.
Yeah, so, it's kind of like the Knicks, number 1, Nets or not. That's what it's kind of like.
All right, we'll see. And there's a reason that I root against the Knicks, and that is why. But
in New York, it's kind of like the Knicks. If Jet X is like the Knicks up top,
okay.
You know what I mean? And then the Nets are just a little.
So you could. I'm gonna say a little below. You're gonna be talking some crap about some other websites, because there's some people who think the Knicks are here and the Nets are all the way down here. So it kind of depends on how you take that. But with that being said,
I'm setting myself up.
Yeah, we're gonna get right into it. Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback, Sabo. You went from was it ESNY and all the other websites you've done and all this. You've been watching Bryce Petty. You've been watching Christian Hackenberg. You've been watching all this garbage over the last couple of years. Just first and foremost, how nice is it to have Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback? And then with that, I want to follow that up with, how do you feel about the trade compensation for Rodgers, and was it fair? Was it not?
Yeah, I mean, I think trade compensation, Green Bay did well. I did not expect a first to be that easy for them, and it was. You got to think, who was involved on the Jets side. I thought the Jets had all the leverage. Green Bay had to get it done, so I think Green Bay did well. You can't go too crazy if you're a Jets fan, because Rodgers is Rodgers, and the conversation between Rodgers and Carr, I think a lot of the fan base overthought it a bit. I mean, this isn't the NBA. It's the NFL. It's year to year. And who's the more talented guy? It's Rodgers by far over Carr, by far. So I think what they needed to get done got done. And I think it was in the works for a long time, even before people, really took it to the mainstream.
Yeah, for sure. And we talked about this with Nania before, like, at one point you could say, or in a certain aspect you could say, yeah, the Jets might have given up too much for Rodgers, but we won't care if they win a Super Bowl in 1 year, and we won't really care if in 2 years they're making consistent runs to the playoffs and maybe making deep runs and hopefully winning the Super Bowl. But while also acknowledging the fact that, yeah, they gave up too much. Like they could have waited longer. They didn't have to give that. There was no other suitors. So did they lose the trade in terms of compensation? What they could have given up? Probably. But none of us are really going to care week 1 when Rodgers is taking a snap, right? So you can kind of look at it from both ways. Like, people are there's no gray zone with just fans in general. It's either black or white. You win, you lose, you suck, you don't. Like, so there's kind of multiple ways you can look at that. But with that, how are you feeling about Rodgers and playing over 1 year, potentially 2? And I think that's what most people feel. And then also, I'm not sure how you feel about this. I know I'm big into chemistry. Like CJ Uzomah last year, I love that signing because what he brought to the locker room. I'm not sure where you fall on that type of stuff in terms of football, not the X's and O's, but actually like the locker room stuff. Do you feel it's really important right now that Rodgers is in camp? He is going to these games. He is at
Yes.
voluntaries. He is doing all this. Okay, so go into the year or two, maybe three, and then how you feel about Rodgers being here and how much of a difference that actually makes to an NFL team.
Oh, it's huge, and I think we're on the same page there with the chemistry, with off the field stuff, and throw Zach Wilson in there too. You don't expect anything from Zach Wilson, but if there is a small percentage of a chance where it can click mentally for him, this would be it. I mean, honestly, you don't expect it; it's not in your plans, but this would be it. And Rodgers, you see, I mean, that Jordan documentary on Netflix, it became a meme. He takes everything personally, right? I took it personal. I took it personal. That's Rodgers. People call him a diva, but the Jets, and he's a strange dude in a lot of ways, but when he gives someone his word, he usually carries through. And that's the one thing that made me not nervous at all this entire time. And figuring the Jets had leverage. So with that, yeah, I was a little disappointed with the compensation, but him being there now, having that fire, it's expected that he's going to be here for more than 1 year. We'll see. He'll make no promises, but you saw it. I mean, even on the McAfee show, he kind of had to, and I'm not saying he's a liar, but he kind of had to craft his narrative that, hey, Green Bay didn't want me anymore. Things changed. Now I got to stick it to everybody. And I think that's a really hell of a great thing for the Jets.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm going to throw this to Nania because we're kind of shotgunning these topics a little bit just to get you caught up. But this is something I forgot to bring up, Nania, in terms of the quarterback position. I know we can talk about linebacker, talk about safety. Is backup quarterback a very big need for the Jets right now? Because I know Tim Boyle only got guaranteed $75K, if I'm not mistaken, so he could easily be cut. So is he on the roster? Is it Zach Wilson? Because there, again, it's black or white with fans. If Rodgers is lost for the season, yes, we are screwed. If Rodgers is lost for one game and you need somebody to go in there and manage it and beat the Commanders, then maybe Teddy Bridgewater could do it. So, Nani, how do you feel about the backup quarterback position? Is it something that's like pertinent? Like we really need to bring in a guy, Teddy Bridgewater, whoever it may be. I saw Nick Foles was cut. I'm not sure how we feel about him now, but I don't think Tim Boyle or Zach Wilson's enough. And I get that, Zach Wilson should be able to be groomed to be at least a decent backup quarterback, but he's not right now. So do you do something at backup quarterback, and is it something that really needs to be done in the future?
Yeah, I'm definitely very concerned about the backup spot, and it goes even beyond just the fact that Zach Wilson, talent wise, where he ranks, among backups, and I did some numbers on it earlier this offseason. His career pass rating would be the fourth worst out of projected backup quarterbacks. So that in itself is already bad enough, but it's just what it would mean mentally for Wilson to still be on this team and have to fill in for Rodgers, because we already know how much he struggled with the pressure and just mentally how much it's been a struggle for him, because we know the physical talent is there, but it's obviously just been inconsistency and bad decision-making and the yips and all of that. So just imagining Rodgers getting hurt and the guy who has to come out there and replace him in front of the MetLife fans is Zach Wilson. It's hard to imagine him being up to that task. I mean, I think his best chance of succeeding in the league would have to be on another team, because he just needs that fresh start to reset his mind and be able to get into that mental state to where he can start to get at least something out of his physical tools. But with this team, it would just be such a high pressure situation for a young kid in the league who hasn't been able to handle it yet. So that, in addition to just, who he is as a player, is what really scares me about him being the backup. So I don't see them adding a veteran backup. If it were me, I would, sign Teddy Bridgewater. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I would sign someone like him immediately. But I mean, Sabo, Joe, do you guys think there's a chance they'll do it? Because I just think it's going to be Wilson. It's not something I agree with, but that's what it seems like.
No, I think there's a chance, because you want to dangle a carrot in front of him this summer. So I think there's a chance. Will it happen? I have no idea. But I do think there's an option. There's a chance. And again, it depends on who it is. Yeah, I would look to bring someone in too, if only to have him try to get that carrot this summer.
Yeah. And with like Tim Boyle, when they initially signed him, it's like, oh crap, like is that really their answer? But maybe bring in Boyle. I think his name is Tim, right? That's a problem. I don't really know, but I know his last name is Boyle. Maybe that was a hedge against Rodgers not coming in and being able to install the offense was Boyle. Now they get rid of him, they bring in a Bridgewater or a Foles or whoever it may be. But it's be interesting to see. But we'll move on to running back because we'll again, just for the sake of getting Sabo caught up. So Sabo pretty much for the running back position kind of went through where we were at the end of the season and where we're at now, and we kind of sprinkled in Izzy into that spot. But what are your overall thoughts on the running back spot where we're at? And then again, Sabo does like 1,000 things behind the scene that absolutely nobody sees. So I'm not sure if he was able to get to the film of Izzy, but
no.
Okay, so no. So overall thoughts about the running back position for the Jets right now.
I mean, I think it's solid. It's Brees. It's up to Brees. The early reports are he's looking good. Salah had a quote I heard the other day that not that they're trying to slow him down, but that's in the back of their heads. Like he looks so damn good that we want to be careful. So he's ahead of schedule, and I think as long as Brees is going, the group should be okay. I mean, Michael Carter was bad last year. We know this, but he's probably somewhere in the middle between his rookie season and sophomore season, and you still got Bam too, and Bam was a pleasant surprise. So I think NFL standards, I think they're okay.
Yeah, and one other thing I wanted to get into actually, because I completely forgot about it with the draft. Again, I know that we were more towards the Rodgers side and not necessarily looking into all these prospects. Even if we did, I'm not sure we've been with Will McDonald, considering that's probably the second. Actually, it's probably the deepest position on our team, or if not second. But nonetheless, we didn't really think that he was going to be an option. But overall thoughts on the pick. Did the Jets get sniped by the Steelers? Would they have traded up to 12 even if we were at 13? Do you think they really wanted Jones? Did Pats heard about it? The Steelers heard about it. That's what happened, and they kind of panicked a little bit and took Will McDonald. Just like overall the process and the actual pick and the player.
Yeah, I think they ran out of time. I think Douglas ran out of time. He's trying to trade back and just couldn't get it done. Would it have been Jones? Would it have been a different position altogether? That shocked us. I have no idea. I thought that was a possibility. Where did the reports come from that they were interested in the running back?
I believe that's trickled from the Lions. I don't know if that's the Lions trying to pump up their own pick or not, but I don't believe they're interested in running back there.
I generally don't believe it either, but there's a small percentage of me that is in the back of my head, like maybe it's possible. But I think they ran out of time. And I did think edge was a possibility at 15. McDonald wasn't on my radar whatsoever.
Yeah. So now what do you think about fit? And me and Nani, we really got into like the weeds in terms of like the snap percentages, but because initially he gets drafted, I'm like, okay, well, they have to cut Lawson. And then you kind of transition to, okay, well, obviously they like Lawson. They're not going to cut Lawson for, at least as a part of my best guess. But do they move JFM inside? Like, make it make sense in terms of snap percentages. So JFM moves inside, but me and Nani kind of talking about, even with that happening, you're still going to have, with JFM inside, a first-round pick sitting on the bench, a Carl Lawson sitting on the bench who's invested highly into. So how much of an impact, like, can Will McDonald make at 25% of the snaps instead of maybe getting, and again, I know there wasn't safeties there or linebackers there, but in terms of like how much of an impact is he actually going to make this year for a first-round pick?
Yeah, Nania, give us the snap percentages after I lay this down. I mean, I kind of view it as the D-line's 8 starters now. It's just the way the league is with rotation, and I kind of group the edges in this way, where Huff and McDonald are the sub rushers, so not a lot of snaps. Huff and McDonald are the smaller, bendier sub rushers. Then you got the balance guys, which are Lawson and Jermaine Johnson, and then you got the hybrids, JFM and Clemens, who are edge and base, and then interior in sub. That's kind of the way I view it. It's a lot of bodies, and Nania, you know better with the snaps.
Yeah, I mean, last year they played their top guys less than most teams in the league. I mean, some of the top DT and edges in the league will play 70, 80%. Like even some of those guys you compare Quinnen against, who are in, all pro conversation, all that, like Simmons are in that range. And Quinnen was at 65%. And then you look at the edge, Lawson was in those high 50s, I think. I'm pulling up the numbers right now, but yeah, like the starters for the Jets play less than most teams, and they dip into that depth more than most teams. So we'll see how it plays out. But I mean, like Huff last year was only playing in obvious pass situations, never played against the run, that ended up having him. I said earlier, he played 20% in the games he played. And then if you're looking at Johnson, he only played 27%, 34% of the games he played. So like, and now you're throwing McDonald in there. Clemens played 27% last year. There's a lot of snaps to go around, or there aren't a lot of snaps to go around, and there are a lot of guys who need them. So it'll be interesting to see how they split it.
The signing of, who was it, Al Woods, the 340-pound guy in the middle?
Yeah.
That one shocked me more than the McDonald's pick, actually, because they've been stubborn against, I don't know if it's stubborn or availability, just not the opportunity there, but they've stayed away from those huge, run stuffing D tackles, and now they have one.
Yeah, and Nani and I have discussed it before. I know Nani wrote an article about it, but they absolutely need to change their rotations. They can't have the hockey line changes anymore. They have to have the basketball substitutions, just one guy at a time. Because if Quentin Jefferson's in there, because it's third and one, but he was on the rotation with that team, and then they run up the middle, and it's not Al Woods on the field, I'm going to freak out. Like, I'm going to seriously question our coaching staff. So
the problem is situational awareness. When you rotate like that, in terms of hockey, line changes, the awareness, you don't get a feel for what situation you're in as much when you're on the field for all four downs. And that's the way you're going to play things a lot of the times, based on the scenario, based on the situation. And that's the thing I've seen lacking, especially 2 years ago with Sal's first year. A little better last year, but it still wasn't there fully.
Yeah, and with like the defensive line, we can talk about this for hours. We'll obviously move past it, but like, at what point is it too much? If you have, let's say, the situation you said where you have Huff and McDonald in the field at the same time, you paid Lawson $15 million a year to do what?
No. I'm not even saying they're going to be on the field at the same time. I'm just grouping those edges in different categories. Like, there's 3 different types: a balanced guy, a hybrid, and then the speed bendy sub package guy.
Regardless of what the who actually takes the snaps at a certain point. Like, let's say it is McDonald and Lawson. You have JJ, a first round pick, sitting on the bench. You paid Huff to do that. He's on the bench. So at what point is it too much? But I get the future stuff and replacing, having that pipeline. But in a year where you want to go for it all, or 2 years when you want to go for it all, is it more important to get a guy who's going to play, say, 100% of the snaps at safety or something like that? Again, there wasn't a safety there. I get that, but it's just a conversation. So moving past that, we'll move to receiver. Then we have a question about the offensive line, which we'll get into as well. Receiver group, we'll go with Nania first. We entered the offseason. We're kind of I think we were generally happy with the receiver, right? Like, you had Elijah Moore, you had Davis, you had Garrett Wilson. We were pretty pumped about that. And I don't think there's anybody realistically who would say, okay, I'm going to take Alan Lazard over Elijah Moore just because of the potential he has. But overall thoughts about where we are at with receiver. And I know I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I know where you kind of stand on this with the Moore trade. Like, I think we'd all prefer him to be on the team, and I would be really excited to see him with Rodgers. Lazard isn't the caliber of player Moore could be. But with that being said, obviously things happen, and he bitched a little bit. Now he's out. Regardless, where do you feel about the group now?
Well, yeah, you're right. I definitely was optimistic about what Moore could have done with Rodgers, because like, you and I watch all the film, and no one could see it when you just look at his box scores, but there are so many routes that he won where he should be getting the ball and making big plays, but Zach Wilson throws it over his head. He's scrambling outside the pocket, or he's getting sacked, because the offensive line deserves some blame for that too. So there was just so many unrealized routes for Moore, and it really, the guy he is on tape is so much better than what the numbers are. So I was optimistic to see Rodgers capitalize on those routes and give him the production he deserves, and we'll see what he does in Cleveland. But yeah, like, Lazard can't match the potential that Moore has. But I like the way that they rebounded after trading Moore. It's they didn't get that big number 2 guy that I think you and I both agreed we wanted to see them get, that guy, whoever it might have been, whether it was Hopkins, Evans, whatever. Maybe they even thought OBJ could have been that, but they didn't get that. But I like that they built a pretty well-rounded group with Lazard, with Hardman, and with Cobb. There are a lot of guys who could do different things, line up in different places, and different skill sets who can bring different things to the table. So I do like the depth and the well-roundedness, but they're really going to need Wilson to stay healthy and be the Devontae Adams. I'm not going to put him quite at that tier yet, but he does have the potential to be that top tier kind of guy. So they really need him to stay healthy and be that guy, because if he does go down, then then that's when it gets murky. I think that's the difference between this unit and some of the top units in the league, where you have, Chase gets hurt, you still have T. Higgins, Metcalf gets hurt, you have Lockett. There are a lot of, and Hill, and then you have Waddle. So a lot of teams can survive one injury and still have a star. The Jets don't have that, but so they're really going to have to hinge on Wilson's health. But I think 1 to 5, it's a really solid unit.
Yeah, I think they were ranked like, oh, sorry, Sabo. I know they were ranked like 13th in that article or whatever it was. But so go on with that, the receiver group, and then also with that, I want to add in kind of what Nania was alluding to there. Do you think there's because the Jets haven't made big moves later in the offseason, but they added the Morgan Moses, they added Quan, all that stuff later in the season. Is there still a shot for it? Now, I don't know if the Bucs think they're going for it all with Baker Mayfield and all that stuff, but is there still a shot that they maybe add a guy to that group like a stud? Because listen, if you trade for Hopkins, and we don't really know what the actual price is of the trade, but people are saying like a 4th or a 5th round pick, whatever it may be. If you could find a way to fit that into your room and you have Garrett Wilson and Hopkins, like you're really going for it all. But do you think there's a chance that happens, and overall thoughts about the group as well?
Yeah, I mean, with Rodgers in tow, there's a chance. Absolutely. I mean, at any point, the OBJ timing, they really didn't sign anyone after OBJ decided on, where the hell did he go? I can't remember. Baltimore. They didn't sign anyone after that, right?
No. I think with OBJ, it was you sign him. Davis is gone, so I think that was they were kind of there. That was their backup plan, which is
so Davis. I mean, first of all, I'm happy. I'm thrilled. OBJ is not in the building. No, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Not for that price.
Forget about it. I wouldn't even want him at a lower price, half that money, but that's another story. Okay. Jets receiving group, number 1, they're great. With 5 guys, they're great. With 6 guys, they're great. Even with 4 or 3, they're pretty good. But their top 2 is not great. Their number 2 is not great. Mm-hmm. Hey, I think it'll be okay. It's just, in Elijah Moore, I fully admit this is where I would be. This is the one area where I would be a terrible NFL GM. I would have traded his ass within the month after he pulled that stuff last year. I don't care about the value in terms of what I'd get in return. You just can't do that. So I admit that would be a downfall of mine if I was an NFL GM. Did they get tremendous value for him anyway? Not really. You
need to do some ayahuasca with Rodgers and relax a little bit.
Oh, dude, let's go. Come on, anytime. But I would have bolted him last year. I don't care how open he's getting on film. He's really shifty. He's got a lot of talent. He runs routes well, but all that stuff, I can't have it.
I'm assuming that you're speaking about Elijah Moore. That's exactly why you don't want Odell here. But yeah, it's like the Jets have a stud 1, and again, Rodgers compared him to Devontae Adams, so he's now Devontae Adams. So we had Devontae Adams at 1. I think like past that, you have a bunch of good 3s and 4s, like really solid 3s and 4s, but they're
deep too. They're deep too. It's a deep group.
Yeah, but they don't have like now. If Corey Davis was healthy, if you could tell me Corey Davis can be healthy for 16 out of 17 games, I'm okay with him as a 2. I think Corey Davis is a decent 2, but the problem is he plays 10 or 11 games a year. So if he goes down, then everybody goes up a peg, and that's when it's too much. Like right now, it's a very solid group. Corey Davis goes down, and Lazard is your 2, Hardman's your 3. It's not the best.
No, and Lazard better stay healthy too.
Yeah, for sure. He hasn't been a pillar of health, and Nani's brought that up to me in the past before, like referencing where he's missed a couple of games as well. Now, and this is something that nobody's gonna really think about, but it does aid to the Jets' offense. Like the fact that they have Lazard and Davis can be very big for an outside zone, type of scheme, and obviously pen and pulls and things like that. Now, people compared, Lazard to Hines Ward. I don't think he's that good at blocking. I think that Corey Davis is actually a better blocker. I think Corey Davis is a better player. But Lazard has been a little bit more healthy, but I do like that element of the offense. But moving past that, and we'll move to the next kind of skill position group for the Jets in terms of their offense, and we'll run through the rest of the position groups and get you guys out of here in a half an hour. And then I'll address the chat and talk to you guys for the remaining of the show. But tight end group, I'll throw to you again first here. Conklin, Ruckert, Mercedes Lewis being brought in. I'm sure in a day or two, whatever that's going to be. Uzama, what's your overall thoughts about the tight ends? Because like to me, just with Conklin, this is a guy who I think he was 10th in receiving yards last year. Again, the same I didn't hear before, but I'm nervous to bring up numbers around Nania. I think he's like 10th. So I think he's being criminally underrated by fans. Like people just think he's a trash player. And I was really, really high on Conklin coming in. But nonetheless, what are your thoughts on the tight end the tight end group? Does Zach Kuntz become the new red zone target for the Jets and have 10 catches for 9 touchdowns or something like that, or how are you feeling?
Yeah, and with the 10.0 RAS, there's no reason that, Kuntz shouldn't be. I say RAS, some people say RAS, but I just like to say it that way. But anyway, with that, he'll be scoring 10 touchdowns this year, 6'7". That's all you got to do. Just line up in the red zone and throw fades. It's that easy. I don't know why he made it to the 7th round, but no, I don't expect much from him. But with Conklin, I agree with you. He was 8th in receptions among tight ends last year and 12th in receiving yards, and that's with Zach Wilson and Joe Flacco and Mike White. So I'm excited to see what he can do with Rodgers throwing the ball. We've seen Rodgers have seasons before with many different tight ends. He never really had a consistent tight end, at least not since earlier in his career. But various different tight ends had big touchdown seasons with him, and I could see Conklin being that guy this year because the route running is there, as we know. I thought his hands, despite some drops earlier in the year, you saw them throughout the year. He rebounded, normalized in that area, and made a lot of really good catches. So I think Conklin's going to have a good year. But after that, I'm definitely looking for Rucker to overtake Uzama. I was not a fan of Uzama last year. The blocking with him was, I thought it didn't get enough attention how much he was struggling as a blocker. And it was a big problem in the run game. So I'm looking for Rucker to prove that he could be a better blocker than Uzama and take over that second tight end spot. And, to Uzama's credit, he made the most of his opportunities when he was targeted. He didn't really drop passes, and he had some good yak moments, a couple good catches in that Detroit game. But he's just not a guy who gets open, really adds much to your offense in terms of like a guy who could create chances. And, that definitely can hurt. So hopefully Rucker can develop his route running because he does have some good potential in that area. You touched on it last year when you broke down his film. And his blocking he showed at the end of the season last year was very promising as well. So I'm hoping Rucker can have a breakout year and take over as that second tight end because there is a lot of room for improvement off what Uzama did last year.
Yeah. What about you, Sabo?
Yeah, I mean, I mirror those thoughts. Fans aren't going to when fans see a guy drop several balls, that's it. I mean, and that's what happened with Conklin, especially early. He dropped some key balls, and he's got to do a lot to make up for it. I mean, that's just the way it goes in casual fandom. Yeah. But I do like Conklin too. Rucker, I have no idea. It's concerning that he didn't even get in the mix last year, really. So we'll see. The undrafted guy, again, he could play power forward in the NBA, I think, how long he is. But, we'll see. I think it's a solid group. Nothing spectacular, no elite upside, but with Rodgers, it could be productive.
Yeah, I'm really high on Conklin and his route running, and again, like perfect point, Sabo, because the first impression is everything with casual fans, and you see him drop 2 or 3 balls, he's done for the rest of his life. Now he has bad hands. But when you look at Conklin his first couple of years with the Vikings, he had like 1 or 2 drops a year. In his first 3 games with the Jets, he has 3 drops, 2 fumbles. It's like, of course. So now it's going to take a while. Just like McGovern, like people think he's trash because his first game or 2 he struggled, but really he's an okay center. Now, I kind of want to transition this almost back into receiver, but I'll go for Nania for this. Would you be absolutely flabbergasted if they were to sign a Mercedes Lewis? Because, again, we could have an argument about would Mercedes Lewis make a bigger impact this year than Zach Kuntz? And
is that how you pronounce it?
I think it's Kuntz. I could be wrong. I think it's Kuntz. That's what I'm rolling with for now.
It's just double checking.
Yeah. So yeah, we're going to go with Kuntz, and then I want to transition that into Mercedes Lewis to Cobb as well. Because we didn't really talk about Cobb. We didn't talk about necessarily the depth. We like Cobb, like what he offers, but I still feel even before the draft, before the Cobb signing, that the Jets were lacking at wide receiver 5 because again, if one of Lazard or Davis goes down, now wide receiver 5 becomes 4, and I don't think we had wide receiver 5, so I actually like the Cobb signing. But with that being said, Mercedes Lewis and Cobb, are you going to lose your mind about it? Or did you lose your mind about Cobb? And how would you feel about Mercedes Lewis coming as well? Just assuming it's going to happen eventually.
I think Lewis would be a little surprising to me just because, they drafted Ruckert last year. He hasn't really gotten his chance. The only way I could see it is maybe they really just aren't high on Ruckert and what he's done since they drafted him. Because like you said, Sabo, the fact that he didn't really play last year is a little concerning because, and maybe they just saw it as a redshirt year. They signed the 2 tight ends already, and they just wanted him to sit back, and injuries never really threw him in, and it just played out that way. But he was playing a little bit at the start of the year. Then he just kind of completely disappeared.
Yeboah and Cager were.
And Cager was starting the first game, and that was wild. And then I
understand Cager to a degree because he's a different type of tight end.
Yeah.
But Yeboah was even over him in the depth chart for the majority of Yeboah's time there, I think.
Yeah, so it's definitely worth noting. I hope he can break out, and I'm sure they hope as well, but it shouldn't be completely overlooked what happened last year. But yeah, maybe it would be a signal of not liking Rucker that much if they sign Lewis. I would be mildly surprised if they signed him. But yeah, go ahead.
He makes sense if he could still block. I have no idea. He's ancient, but how are you going to carry 5 tight ends? Like that's really difficult.
The only way I would see that would be they're going to cut. I would assume they would move Kuntz to the practice squad in that instance, and then I could see so I brought up with Nani before. Keith Carter is very big on fullbacks, at least in this offense in Tennessee. So do they have to carry an extra fullback on this roster? So does maybe Mercedes Lewis coming on as tight end 4 maybe allow Ruckert to be more in a fullback role, and that's how they get away with not carrying 5 running backs or 4 running backs and a fullback. So I see it as a potential as a potential option. And to be honest, right now, if you maybe sign a dotted line, hey, who's gonna make a bigger impact for the Jets this year if they were on the team? Kuntz or Mercedes Lewis? I'm taking Mercedes Lewis over Kuntz. So we'll see what happens with that. But moving to the and with Cobb too, people go crazy about that. And we'd have to maybe an article idea or whatever, but how many wide receiver 5s are better than him in the league? Like people lose their mind, but he's a Jeff Smith replacement. Like there's not a lot of guys I would take over him at wide receiver 5. So I actually really, really like him. And he's going to be there. He's going to be where Rodgers expects him to be. He's good on scramble drills. He's good at sitting in soft spots in zone coverage. And he's better than Darius, and he's probably better than Jeff Smith and Mims and all these guys. So I don't know why people are losing.
And the biggest thing his greatest asset is he's gonna help the other guys in that room with Rodgers. Like that's a major thing. Now, it's more money than I thought, but I don't really care as long as it doesn't hurt the future and it doesn't. It's just a 1-year signing. Yeah. Number 1 and number 2, as long as you're good on special teams, then you're fine. I mean, that's the only possible thing you're taking away from the roster if he's the wide receiver 5 and you're lacking at special teams, but I don't think that's going to be the case.
Yeah, so I'm going to bring up the super. I know I was going to get to the chat after, but I'll get to this one specifically because it's a super chat, and I'm assuming he wants this read while we're all here. But Nose Kills donates and says, "We got Kuntz. Are you disappointed we missed Cox?" I'll throw that to Sabo. Are you happy? So this is a kind of, I guess, almost like an inside joke, but we got Kuntz, which kind of sounds like something else. And then there's years ago, I was on Jets Talk 24/7. We were talking during the draft, and I think it was Jabril Cox was from LSU, that linebacker, and we just kept talking about how we wanted a Cox, and we want Cox so bad, it kind of turned into this whole thing.
Yeah,
so,
no,
I appreciate it, Nose, because I appreciate you letting me up.
Was there any Ron Beaver in the drafts, anything like that, or no?
Wasn't there a Beaver last year, Nania? There was Darius Beavers or something. There was a linebacker who was close to Beavers, but
Beaver's on the mind for me right now.
Beaver, interesting. But so Nose Kills, I appreciate the 2 euros there. I am slightly disappointed with Miss Cox, but I'm happy we got Kuntz. So there you go. I said it. So now past that, the offensive line. Sabo, we'll start with you first. How are we feeling? We went through the offseason. They struck out on Orlando Brown, apparently. Obviously we were thinking, the top 4 offensive linemen or tackles in the draft, and we wanted one of those guys. They missed out. They kind of rebounded a little bit by signing Billy Turner. They draft Carter Warren as well to supplement some of the depth in the draft. How are we feeling about that group right now? Are you nervous? Where are you at?
It's one of those things where if you could guarantee me health, I think they're a lot better than people think. But health is everything. Availability is everything. And that's a major factor. So because of that, it's up in the air. It's 50-50. You got to love the Tippmann draft pick in the second round. That's a home run, unless there's something about him on film you didn't like. But just Wisconsin interior line usually hits each time. Like that they brought McGovern back, let those 2 battle it out. Can Tomlinson rebound? You sure hope so. And then AVT is the heart and soul of this team, I thought. I mean, he's just that kind of football player, that kind of leader, that kind of guy in the locker room.
I'm going to interrupt you. I'm sorry to interrupt you right here, and I like your point. Is he moving to tackle? Do you see him just locking in at guard? Like, what's your thoughts about him flip flopping around for
yeah, no,
I
think you leave him at guard because the value in having him being able to play tackle in a pinch is incredible, right? Yeah. And we know he could play both. His higher upside's probably at guard, but again, I don't think it's that big of a deal either way. I think having him be able to kick out at tackle in a pinch is so valuable, and the other way around is not as valuable. So you have extra bodies at tackle. You got Mitchell, you got Becton, you got Dwayne Brown. You know, Dwayne Brown, he re-signed to play. You know, he's going to play. So if Becton could actually get on the field, he looks good. That would be, you know, huge. That would be a monster move for this team. So as long as Becton stays healthy, you know, obviously AVT has to stay healthy. That was the turning point, him going down, Brees too. But I think AVT is that big. I'm more optimistic than most people are, I think.
Nania, what's your thoughts about the offensive line, and then what would be your starting lineup as of right now for the best five?
Well, yeah, I think on paper, if everyone's healthy, it does have the potential to be one of the better lines in the league because Douglas has poured so many assets into it over the years, and that shows when you look at the lineup on paper when it is healthy. I mean, hopefully you can get a bounce back from Tomlinson, and you know with the veteran quarterback behind him, another year playing in this offense, although he has experienced the offense already. But yeah, hopefully he can bounce back. At center, Tippmann has the opportunity to be a very good player right away. I mean, you look at what Creed Humphrey did a couple years ago for the Chiefs, second-round pick at center, one of the first guys drafted, great athlete. He was an instant star. So centers can do that. We've seen that from a few guys in recent years. AVT speaks for himself, like you said, Sabo. And then Becton, we know the talent's there. If he's healthy, I think there's still some development he needed after that rookie year, but he's still showed a floor of being, you know, good to very good, above average at worst when healthy. And then Dwayne Brown, I think if he's healthy, can be at least average as well. So you put all that together and it can be a very, very good offensive line, maybe top 10.
Blewett, what do you think about AVT, the inside outside?
I'm keeping him at guard. I think he can be an all-pro elite guard at tackle. I thought he was very good, just not as good. Like so maybe this is kind of like almost a flaw in how I went about the process. I watched Tristan Colon, I watched Wes Schweitzer, and then immediately after that I watched AVT, and I was like, wow, this guy is amazing. So, but to me, he was not mind-blowingly good, but he was amazing at guard the first couple of games. Tackle, he's very, very solid, but I just don't think he has the all-pro potential at tackle. And to me, the position, like the flexibility is great, but I am not like, yes, you want the tackles. Yes, you want the corners. Yes, you want the receivers out there. But if you have an all-pro guard, if you have an all-pro linebacker, if you have an all-pro safety, it makes a very big difference. So yes. I would keep him at guard where he's the best and most comfortable at this point.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I'll say this. He was amazing at tackle considering the circumstances.
Oh, yeah.
That I'll say for sure. But yeah, I agree.
For sure. Yeah, but the offensive line, like, yeah, you don't want them to be injured. If you're going to be more positive, if Becton's healthy, awesome. Dwayne Brown, listen, he played hurt last year. He didn't play with the shoulder. So is he going to be better? Yes, he will. And so they don't have like the top end guys minus maybe what Tippmann will be and what AVT is and will continue to grow to be. But I like the depth. Like at the end of the day, you have a lot of flexibility. You know, Schweitzer can play center guard. You have Cologne, who I like, who can play center guard. You have McGovern now, who most likely is going to be back and who can play center guard. You have Tippmann, who could probably play center guard. You have Billy Turner, who could play tackle guard. Like, it's crazy how much versatility and depth they have while acknowledging they don't have the top flight guys. Like, yeah, we'd all want Orlando Brown right now, but they didn't get him, and they kind of transitioned into, okay, I'm not going to get a top end guy, but now we're going to put it on Becton, but we're going to supplement that with grabbing a Billy Turner and with drafting a Carter Warren. So past that, and I guess we can get into the defensive line and stuff like that too. And I'll throw this to Nania, because I know he's watched at least a little bit. What are your feelings on Carter Warren in terms of like the tackle depth? Because we talk about the interior guys, Tippmann, I think we all like him, and I can get into him a little bit. Actually, let's get to both the rookies, Nania, because I know you've watched them. Thoughts on both the rookies for this line, because I don't want to skip over them. we'll get to the rest of the position groups, and I'll get you guys out of here in 18 minutes. We're going to have to expedite the last couple of positions, though.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Tippmann. From when I watched him, I do think that he is good enough to be a starter right away. We'll see how quickly he acclimates, but I do think he has the potential to be one of, like I mentioned, Creed Humphrey, that kind of guy who could come right in, be a plus starter. And interior offensive linemen, specifically centers, do tend to do that, I think, at a better frequency than other positions. If you look at the hit rate of centers at the top of the draft, it's one of the best positions, if not the best position. So I am a fan of him starting right away. The size obviously is the biggest thing that stands out with him, but it's the way he moves at that size that's really impressive. He has plenty of quickness and movement skills that you wouldn't expect from a guy who's 6'6" at center is pretty unusual. So I think he's a good scheme fit. And I loved his pass protection too. I thought he was very aware, good at picking up stunts, recognizing blitzes, passing things off, stuff like that. So I think he's going to be, they'll have a competition, but I think he's going to win it and start right away. And Warren, I think I'm higher on him than you are, and you go ahead. Like, you know more offensive line than I do, but I liked what I saw from him. I think he, obviously the length you see is the first thing that pops out when you look at his measurables and when you watch him play. And I thought he used it pretty well. I think his pass sets were pretty good. And he also had a lot of experience playing in true pass sets at Pittsburgh, which is something a lot of college tackles don't get. So he is ready to, come into the NFL and play on 3rd and long, drop back and hold up for 3-4 seconds versus a lot of guys come out of college and it's just play action and rollouts and quick passes. So he does have that experience. I like the length and the size. Thought he used it pretty well, but you let me know what you think about him.
Yeah, so Tippmann, I think, like, all things being even, I think he will start. I think McGovern would have to be quite comfortably better than him to start. Obviously because he plans to be here for quite a while. I like the athleticism, I like the size, I like the strength, I like the run blocking, I like the pass sets. So sometimes he might overset a little bit, get a little bit too much depth, but that's something they can work on. The only thing with him is obviously the height. And you hear about that, and you want guys who are more squatty because they're going to play against squatter and nose tackles, defensive tackles. But with that being said, he plays with really good knee bend. He plays with a good anchor. He plays with good strength. The only thing with him, which is not necessarily an easy fix, but it has to be fixed. If you're tall and you shoot wide, you really might get bull rushed in the NFL. So he has to really focus his hands to get more to the inside. But overall, I like his knee bend. I like his strength and, again, his anchor. So I think he'll be fine there. I think he'll fix that. Carter Warren, to me, he's like OT5 right now. I really don't think you see him right now. I think people are talking about him being like a pro-ready guy, which to a certain aspect he is in the pass game. I think he's ready, and this is something I brought up to you, Nania. I think he has good foot speed. I think he has good movement. His pass sets are sloppy in terms of how high he raises his feet. So if you're not connected to the ground, you're not able to transition left and right sometimes. Sometimes it looks like his lateral athleticism is not there, but it's more because of his footwork and his technique than his actual movement skills. If that makes sense to some people, which I'll break down in the future. But I like him, but he has a very, very, very long way to go in the run game. And I usually like my tackles and just guys in general to be more gritty. And Warren has no grit to him. Like, he's not a physical player at all. So I want to see that, maybe him get a little bit more nasty. But overall, I still like it. I think he's a pro-ready pass in the pass game. Run game, he's going to need a year. He's going to need a year in the run game.
He's really long, right? Like, how big is he for being that long?
He was 35-inch arms. I think his wingspan is really high up there. Was he 6'5", Nania? 315, something like that?
Yeah, I'll pull it up.
Yeah, I have it in my notes right here from me walking. So he is 24 years old, 6'5", 311, 35-plus-inch arms I wrote down. But I know his wingspan was
35, 3/8, 88th percentile.
Yeah. So good length and all that stuff. But we'll move past that just to the next one. Defensive line, will transition to that. We already talked about it a lot. I'll ask the only things that we haven't really talked about. Is Lawson going to be better this year than last year, Sabo? Is that something you legitimately think, or is that something that we just assume, like, just with Wayne Brown? But is that like the whole thinking too? Okay, the first year off the ACL, you're not as good as the second year off the ACL. So should we be expecting more from Lawson, be more excited? Because I think he's not really talked about so much anymore because we have a lot of new players, all that stuff. But should we be expecting a lot from Lawson?
I don't know. I'm not, to be honest, because he's getting up there in age. And he's never been a guy to finish the play. He's never been a guy, even back in his college days. He's never been that guy. So, should he be better from an overall standpoint? Yeah. And I wouldn't say I'd expect that, but that would, it would be okay to expect that. But in terms of piling up the sacks, I'm not counting on that.
What about you, Nania?
Well, I mean, I don't even expect him to pile up more sacks because, I mean, he even had more sacks this past year than he did in that last season with the Bengals. But even despite that, I think, just from watching him, he didn't seem like the same consistently dominant presence that he was with the Bengals in that 2020 year. Because when they signed him, and even prior to when they signed him, he was my favorite free agent target that year based on watching his 2020 season. And he was just consistently winning in so many different ways. But with the Jets last year, it just felt like he was a pure bull rusher. It's really all he did. So I do think that, after thinking about it more, initially I wasn't too optimistic about him maybe getting better next year. But I think with another year off that Achilles, it could open up more of his game. I mean, maybe he didn't have the confidence to bend around the edge, to slice inside, throw spin moves, things like that. Maybe bull rushing is all he felt good about. But with another year, maybe he can get back some of that full package that he had with the Bengals in 2020. So I don't really expect him to get too many more sacks. Maybe he'll even have fewer sacks, but I do want to see more hits, more pressures. He wasn't getting them consistently enough last year.
Now, I want to throw two more questions to you, Nani, right back to you. So two more things I'm thinking about the defensive line. Do you think the Jets are maybe looking at the defensive line group and saying, okay, we have Huff on one, for one more year. We have Lawson for one more year. They see how those guys play, and they plan on signing one of those guys back next year. Are both of them gone? And then follow that up with, okay, the biggest topic about the defensive line right now, Quentin Williams, not close with the Jets, whatever that's about. That could be his agent. Maybe they're close, and that's really like the thing that pushed over the end line. We don't really know what's going on behind the scenes, but thoughts on Huff or Lawson next year, and then Q. And with Q too, like we could talk about it with the defensive line rotation. And this is not his fault. This is the Jets coaching staff's fault. But if he's going to play 65% of the reps for $25 million, he's going to be really, really efficient in that snap percentage, because there's guys out there playing 80, 85 who are making that money,
Yeah, I mean, maybe the snap count is part of the debate, because the snap count that he's playing is just, it's not at that level that most of the stars play. And he still produced at that level despite the fewer snaps, because his efficiency was just A1 among everybody. So, is he going to go up to 70, 75%? Because I think to justify, even if he is as efficient and productive as he was, I still think you want more snaps out of a guy who's getting paid. Whatever he's going to be paid is probably going to be number 2 behind Donald. So I think you want to see more snaps. And then with Lawson and Huff next year, I wouldn't totally rule out Lawson if he has an amazing season, because, he'll be 28 this year, 29 next year. So he's not too old. And, if he could he had played all 17 games last year. If he can have another healthy season, maybe you give him see where he's at, see how he plays. I wouldn't expect it though. But Huff, I mean, a lot of people talk about Huff like he's this foregone conclusion to be gone next year. And the presence of the 2 first-round picks definitely plays into that. But if Huff has another season like the one he just had, then I think the Jets have a chance to maybe sign him on a good, reasonable long-term deal, because he's probably going to be in that same role again, where he's not playing a ton of snaps, really pass heavy. And, he already signed the tender this year. Next year is going to be easier to get paid. He's going to want a long-term deal, and he might have to just settle for the value that he can get, considering the limitations of his role. And so maybe the Jets can re-sign him long-term at a good price next year. So I wouldn't totally rule out Huff coming back if he could have another good season.
Yeah, I would. The Huff thing is going to be interesting because, like you said, like, okay, maybe he takes a lesser contract because he didn't play all the reps. But if I was his agent, I'm like, yeah, he could play the run game. You haven't really seen him play the run game, so pay me like he could play the run game. So if I had to guess, he's not back, just because I don't think they're using him that way. But we'll see. I guess we'll move on unless you want to. I don't know if you want to comment on that at all. We'll move it to linebacker and safety, because I want to kind of like bunch this together. This has been something I've been saying since probably January, or maybe even before, I don't know, maybe after that, whatever. But I've been bringing up the point of, and now you're seeing articles written about. I think Rivka maybe wrote about it yesterday or 2 days ago, whatever. But I'm not so sure what they're doing at linebacker and safety right now. But is there a chance that one of Clark or Whitehead plays linebacker? The other, like, big nickel type looks and all that stuff, they like those athletic linebackers. So one of Whitehead or Clark replaces Quan. The other guy is a strong safety, and Tony Adams is the free safety. How do you see the middle of the defense with the linebackers and the safeties right now, Sabo? Did they bring back Quan? Are they bringing in a free safety? Like, what's happening? Because right now, minus backup quarterback, they don't have that third starting linebacker. They don't have a true free safety. So is that their pivot? Is it Tony Adams at free safety, and then Quan and or not Quan, Whitehead and Clark kind of splitting that strong safety linebacker kind of role for this defense, and maybe getting a little bit faster at linebacker again, with that being a Clark or a Whitehead now instead of Quan.
Yeah, I mean, Salah, we all know he loves speed at that linebacker spot. We've seen it, him putting safeties there. He tries it. He loves to try it. Even when it's Joyner and Whitehead, there was a lot of situations where Whitehead would be single high and Joyner would be near the line of scrimmage. If you had man responsibility on the tight end or flat, looking for the leak with the running back, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think they really love Tony Adams. I really do think they love this guy. So does Clark. Is he going to convert wholly to linebacker? I don't think that's going to be the case, but will he play a lot in that area? I think that could be what they're thinking right now. Yeah.
To me, like, realistically, if I was a GM, maybe this is a fault of mine too. I cut Whitehead right now. That's $7.5 million you save. $4 million of that's to John Johnson, and the other $3 or whatever is to Quan. Like, that's what I would personally do. But
yeah,
because to me, I think in a year where the Jets weren't going for it all, I think Tony Adams, okay, let's try him out at free safety if you're going to go 6-11 that year, or whatever it may be. But we know how strong the AFC is. Like, this might be the strongest AFC ever. Like, I don't think that's crazy to say that this might be the strongest AFC we've ever seen.
Yeah,
you're going to have to go through Lamar and, obviously Mahomes and Herbert and all these guys. So is Tony Adams at free safety in a passing league a great idea? Nani, how you feeling about linebacker and safety and kind of what we just spoke about?
Yeah, I think I'm with Sabo in terms of what will happen. I just do think that they like Tony Adams, and that's kind of their plan at free safety. Not necessarily that it'll be handed to him and he's the starter right now, but they kind of just want to let him. They're confident enough that he's going to earn that job. He made the team as a UDFA last year. Mm-hmm. He switched to free safety at the end of the year, and I thought he looked really sharp in those couple games he played. It's still not a big enough sample to bet on, but the snaps he did play, I thought he looked really good. So I think that's their plan. But I agree with you, Joe. If I were in charge, I would probably get someone like John Johnson, cut Whitehead, just get him out of here, and use those savings to fortify free safety, because Clark and Whitehead are too redundant. You don't need to be paying Whitehead the cap that he's getting for the role he's, for the production he gave you last year, and also having Clark already there. You don't need Whitehead, for me personally. So that's what I would do. I would get John Johnson, allow him to compete with Tony Adams. Even if you like him, just hedge your bets, get a veteran, especially, as you said, so many great quarterbacks in the AFC on the Jets schedule. It can be risky to have your last line of defense being second-year UDFA who's played 2 games in free safety. So it is risky, but I do think Adams is their guy, and I'm a fan of him too. I am cautiously optimistic about what he could do.
Yeah, and that's while acknowledging that I know, at least you and I, like, after watching him when he was a UDFA, like, we like this guy. And then preseason, we're like, damn, he was good in preseason. And then at the end of the season, like, damn, those were good as well. But is that enough? Playing Patrick Mahomes, I don't think so. But it could be an instance where it's May, right? Like, we have to acknowledge at this point that it's May, and the season's not starting tomorrow. They can go into training camp, see how he does, and then sign a whoever it may be. Like, there's not. Right. It's very easy to upgrade from LaMarcus Joyner, and there's going to be guys who are upgrades from LaMarcus Joyner who are available in July. So we'll see what happens. I have 2 more questions to ask you guys before we get you guys off. So cornerback, don't talk about it. It's stacked. Sauce Gardner is awesome. The documentary that everybody should watch was awesome. Like how humble he is. I love that stuff. Special teams, be quick about it. It's good. Like, it's good at this point. Thank God Nana's gone. I like that we have an actual kicker. Move past those. We don't really need to comment too much into that. I want to ask you guys just a question about, because we are Jets X Factor. We're the 3 owners of Jets X Factor. Sabo, who is the Jets' biggest X Factor in 2023?
Oh, jeez.
Go ahead. Just put it on you. Nani, unless you want to go first.
Nani, go first. All
right. I kind of want to go for the low-hanging fruit. I feel like everyone picks this one and say Becton. Do you agree that's probably the easiest one? I mean, there's just so much potential and so much downside that it's hard to not say that it's him. You know, ceiling is sky high. The floor is that he doesn't even play. So, and, you know, protecting Aaron Rodgers, being on the offensive line, it's absolutely crucial. So it's hard not to pick him, but I kind of want to give a more creative answer.
You know what? I'll go AVT because,
okay.
I rave about him. I think he's that important, and he only played 7 games last year. So you got to prove it to me. Stay healthy for the whole season. I know he did as a rookie, but as long as he's healthy, I think they're going to be okay. Even if, you know, Becton falls short in August.
Yeah, there's a few. Becton's definitely one of them that is healthy. I think you can talk about, you know, even like Lakin, like could he bounce back to just being average for 17?
That's another one to throw in there. He's huge.
That's a huge one. When does Brees get healthy? That's a huge X factor this season. So there's a few. It's interesting to think about with the remaining minutes we have with you guys' schedule. Obviously, it got leaked today that the Jets are playing, you know, Black Friday against the Dolphins, 3:00 at home. I don't love it, but I'd rather that than have to travel to, you know, Dallas for Thanksgiving. So I'm definitely going to Dallas this year. So thoughts on the schedule? I kind of already know Nani's answer for week 1, so I'll throw it to you, Sabo, even though we will get Nani's answer. Week 1, what do you want? A lot of people are talking about it being like a lock that the Jets are playing the Giants week 1. You know, anniversary, 9/11, Monday Night Football, all that stuff. What are your thoughts about that? And then some of the things you're looking for the schedule release tomorrow at 8 p.m.
I saw it. I didn't look at the schedule, but I saw the post on social media somewhere that there's a set Jets schedule floating around somewhere that's saying it was leaked. I got to try to find it to see.
Was it, I don't know if you saw the thing. I think it was NYJ Matt put up like week 1 TBD, week 2 TBD. And he put it for all the weeks. And then the Jets commented back like, how'd you find this?
Really? That's good.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, the Giants make sense. I mean, how does it not? Honestly, I guess the only thing that's, if they do that, I guess they're going to have to play the Giants in the first week of the preseason, right? To try to space that out. So I'm cool. I would think Giants week 1 will be the move.
Now, is that your preference? Or if we had it Sabo's way, what's the week 1 matchup?
I'd rather stay away from Daboll week 1, to be honest, because I think he's one of the best coaches in the league, and I don't want him having the whole summer. So anyone but the Giants would be my preference. Yeah,
and then I'm going to ask you just a question about anything else you're looking for the week 1 schedule. I'll kind of throw the same to Nania, and then again, you guys have to go watch the Knicks lose, so I know that's going to be important. So,
most likely.
So Sabo, is there any other thoughts? Like, I know that people maybe overhype the schedule release, but like, what are you, Mr. All-knowing Robbie Sabo? You know, wisdom, all this stuff. What do you the gray hair? What do you look for the schedule release? Because like obviously there's certain avenues or certain things you want to look out for that maybe aren't so overhyped.
I haven't really been into it, to be honest. I would say the primetime games, that's gonna on a personal level, it's gonna ruin my whole year. I mean, I'm gonna miss Sunday at 1:00. Like, I'm gonna be up until 2 a.m., 3 a.m. 6 times this year, 6 out of 17 times. It's gonna be outrageous.
6. Well, listen, they're also making the Super Bowl and winning that. So you have quite a few prime. 4 more after 10, that.
Actually.
But hey, being in Vegas, being in Vegas, whatever the time is, that's cool.
That's on your credit card, right? So if we make the Super Bowl, it's you're bringing us and me and Nania, right? We need to cover it, so it has to happen.
Listen, if they're in the Super Bowl, the 3 of us are going.
Did that get lost in the mail, by the way, Sabo? The company credit card you're supposed to send me?
I tried to send it another time too. You didn't get it.
Weird.
That's a shame.
Must be a problem at the post office or something.
Yeah, you gotta. They're bad over here.
I think that's an Eminem Stan reference right there. So Nania, thoughts on week 1? Do you want the Chiefs? What are you looking for week 1? Would you welcome the Giants week 1 like everybody's saying, or where are you at?
Yeah, I was telling you this before we started recording, but I really want to see the Jets open up. I know everyone has their favorite primetime matchup that they want to see, and we'll get them throughout the year. But to start the season, I want to see home game, low-key opponent like Houston, Atlanta, Washington, because there's going to be so much hype going into this game. The stadium's going to be 100% filled, so I want it to be 100% Jets fans. I don't want all the Chiefs fans in there, or the Eagles fans, or Giants isn't a home game, but I want to see how loud MetLife can get when every seat is filled and it's all Jets fans, because Houston, Atlanta, there aren't going to be that many of those road fans coming into MetLife. So that's what I want to see. And plus, just before they get into the primetime spotlight, not to underestimate these teams, but you trade for Aaron Rodgers, you should beat them. Let's start off on a softer note and get some momentum going before we play those games rather than get thrust right into the limelight. But I doubt that's going to be the case. I think they get a primetime opener.
Yeah. But that is the right thought process.
One follow-up question to that, Nania, and we'll let you guys go. Is there any other things you're looking for with the schedule? Like, I know you're a crazy uniform guy, the uniform matchups and all that stuff. And do the Jets get that alternate this year? We'll talk about that in the future. They definitely should. But with that, what are the key things that you're thinking about or like going to first when you see that schedule? Like, what are the like major factors of it?
Well, I want to see the primetime games. Another thing I like to look at is the stretches of home and road games. Like, when are you playing 4 out of 5 on the road? When's your 4 out of 5 at home? Stuff like that. And the interesting thing with the Jets this year is they're going to play 10 MetLife games out of the 17.
It's crazy.
The AFC's year for 9 home games. One of their road games is the Giants. So very heavy home cooking this year. So I'm interested to see how that lays out, because wherever that Giants game slides in, if it's around a couple of home games, you could have a really strong stretch of, okay, we're playing 4 out of 5, 5 out of 6 games at MetLife here, something like that. Then uniforms, like with all the primetime games, we'll see how many they get at home. I'm curious to see if we see something other than all black at home in one of these home primetime games, like maybe all white during a night home game would be interesting. So
I wonder if they're going to go back to the white on black type deal that they were going with. But
that felt very superstition driven. I do like it. I do like it, and I want to see it, but we'll see if they.
I just don't like how the stripes line it, because the stripes go this way, and then the stripes in the pants go downward, so it just doesn't look. It doesn't really go well. But
listen, I hate the uniforms as it is. I can't stand it. I was angry at the fan base for trying to get it changed 2 years ago. Jamal Adams, Darren Lee, just not 2 years ago. No, it's like three at this point. But
they had like very classy type of uniforms. And then the only thing with the uniforms is I don't, and I think Nani's brought this up. And then we'll get again. I'm sorry, but with the uniforms, they changed from Reebok to Nike, right? And that's when the green became more dull. Like, it wasn't as it didn't pop as much. So I didn't like the newer ones when Nike took it over. But maybe again, we'll see. I know you guys have a game to get to. So Sabo, any last thoughts before I kick you guys out of this room and you guys go? Listen, at the end of the day, I hope happiness for you guys, the Knicks, all this stuff, but I just can't. I'm sorry.
Hey, listen, let me say this publicly. Congrats to your Devils. Number one. I didn't even realize.
Who are the Rangers playing tomorrow night?
Yeah, I was waiting. I had no idea. I was waiting for you to kick my ass on it. It never came.
You're busy. You're busy, man. You're busy.
I never knew you were a Devils fan or into hockey.
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah.
I mean, all right. I grew up hating the Devils in the 90s. My God, that was my introduction to sports. Scott Stevens, Brodeur.
Oh yeah.
Dirtbags. My God. But I'll tell you what, this Devils team is pretty likable. I can't hate them for some reason.
Yeah, no, and they're going to be here for a while. Like, they have a lot of young talent, so it's exciting, especially if they can get a goalie of Schmidt or Vanacek like actually step up. Even though Vanacek looks like absolute balls, but nonetheless, Sabo, Nania, any last words before I let you go? I appreciate you guys coming on. Hopefully, we'll do this again relatively soon. I want to get the trio talking about some Jets offseason stuff, but not any last words, and I'll boot you guys.
No, thanks for having us. Look forward to doing this soon. Unfortunately, the Knicks have to cut it short, so we should do another one soon. Get a little more in depth, because I feel like we can always just go Knicks. I wish I could say that with confidence, but I don't. I'm here for it. I'm going to be along for the ride.
I'm not saying,
but yeah, we should get together soon, because anytime we do these, I feel like the time just flies by.
Awesome, Sabo, appreciate you as well. Nania, I will see you soon. Good luck to your Knicks.
Right.
And we'll be in touch.
All right. Later, fellas.
All right. And remove those guys. The quick thing with this, again, I'm going to get to your guys' chats and see what you guys have been saying for the last hour. I just wanted to address the topics we had to in the time we had them. But for the schedule, I'm going to talk about this. And then if you guys don't mind, I have to piss really, really bad. So I'm going to run after I talk about the schedule a little bit and do that. And then for the people who remain here, you remain here, and we'll talk some Jets for quite a bit, or at least until you guys are not entertained anymore. Then I'll click off. Maybe you're not entertained now and you're going to click off because Sabo and Nania left. That is what it is. But now we can get a little bit more in depth, and I can answer some direct comments or questions or talk shit to you guys or whatever. I'm sure I get shit for liking the Devils and the Nets. I get it. I'm probably one of the only people in the world who like the Devils and the Nets, but it is what it is. Schedule thing, like the only really things, and I'm going to be away next week, by the way, so I'm not going to be back. You're not going to see me next week. You'll see me the week after with Kyle Smith. We'll talk about the schedule and all that stuff. Really, like people talk about the week 1 thing. The only thing with the Giants is I don't want a Giants home game first. I get September 11th, all that stuff, the atmosphere. To me, I want Rodgers, and maybe this is selfish of me and like not being respectful, whatever. I want Rodgers' first game at MetLife to be a home game where he's running out of the tunnel, he's getting announced. It's 90% Jets fans, and it's not, what would that game be? 70% Giants, 30% Jets, not getting announced, all that stuff. So I really want like a home game for Rodgers. That's just whatever. I don't know exactly why I want that. And then the other things I'm looking for, bye week, is it week 4, week 5, week 6, week 14, 15, or is it perfect timing where it's week 8, 9, 10, 11, something like that? So you root for the bye week. For me, I'm looking really forward to obviously the road trips and things like that. I'm looking for the good teams on the schedule. We play a lot of good teams. Obviously, the Bills twice, the Dolphins twice. They should be solid. The Chiefs, Eagles, etc. To me, I'd rather play the good teams late. I get people wanting to play the good teams early, surprise the league, and all that stuff. But you'd rather have, at least in my aspect, you'd rather have Rodgers get in sync with the Garrett Wilsons of the world, get in sync with everybody else who they're going to be, or who he's going to be adjusting to just a new city and everything. Everything's going to adjust to. I'd rather have them have more time before they play the better teams. So that's something I'll be looking for. I'd rather play the Chiefs again week 17 instead of week 1 or 2. Even though week 1 they can't play the Chiefs, right? The Chiefs is off the list. They can't do that just because I think Rodgers and Garrett Wilson both said they wanted to play Chiefs week 1, but Chiefs is a home game, and the Super Bowl champions start at home for the Super Bowl celebration. So they will not be playing the Chiefs week 1. I'm rooting for. I think I saw Hawk say it before. Forgive me if I'm wrong here, but he wants to go to New England and kick the shit out of the Pats, which is awesome. To me, I want Pats on the road, Pats at home. Oh no, almost like a power ranking. I want Jets at home against the Pats. I want to kick the shit out of them. And just watch Aaron Rodgers run in a tunnel, all that stuff. But past that, my number 2 option would be Dallas, because I'm going to Dallas. Opening up the season in Dallas would be pretty cool, even though I don't think they waste that primetime slot on that, because it's going to draw anyway, regardless of what week they play it. And then week 3, my third power ranking option would probably be the going on the road and whooping the Pats' ass in Foxborough, just like Hawk said. So I'm going to scroll to the top of the chat. Again, 112 people in here. 25 of you might leave in the next minute or two. I just got to leave really, really quick, and then I'll be back. So I'll see whoever's here when I come back. I don't know. All right, 20 of you suck. 20 people dropped off. It is what it is. So let's see. I know a lot of the chat kind of goes in coordination with what we're talking about at the time, but it is what it is. Again, sometimes it's harder to address the chat when you have 2 guys like that and you're trying to get through some topics. But still appreciate you guys being here. Snowball. Okay, let's go all the way back. Biggest position upgraded this season: QB or punter. Obviously, that's kind of tongue in cheek and obviously a little bit of a joke, but realistically, it's quarterback, right? But it is really nice not to have Brandon, man. Because 1 rep, 60 yards, 1 rep, 27 yards. 1 rep looks great on paper, and people are like, oh, boom, they kicked 55 yards. And that punt had like -2 hang time, so the gunners cannot get down there. So it's something a lot of people don't think about, but you could legitimately say that at least 1 game was lost by the punter, right? I'm not going to say that we were definitely going to win the Pats game, but that was a game that was lost right there. And the Lions game, right? He had 2. Okay, so maybe the Lions game was probably the number 1 game he lost this because the first, was it 2 big punt returns in that game or 1? I know in that game, right off the jump, he booted like a 34-yard kick that had no hang time. They returned it for a touchdown. That's kind of the game right there. So it is really nice to have Morstead, who clearly outperformed him when he was here. They should have never really necessarily got rid of him, but I get trying to go with the higher upside guy and man. But it's nice to have 2 specialists who are actually good at their jobs, instead of the Lachlan Edwards of the world and Braden Mann. So we've had some really shitty punters over the years too. It's not only has our roster been bad, but our special teams has been really bad as well. Do you guys think Q is asking for 27+ million per year, and that's why I don't necessarily know why you're attaching that number to it, Jared, but I don't think he'd be asking for 27 million plus. I think realistically he's probably, what was it, Simmons? No, it wasn't Simmons who was the most recent one. It was Dexter Lawrence, and he was at like 23.5 or something like that. I think Q at about $25 million a year, like everybody else is saying, is going to be the point where he signs that. Now, are the Jets arguing the snap percentage? Are the Jets arguing the fact that he's only had 1 truly elite dominant year? It's a possibility, but at the end of the day, like, it sends a big message to the locker room. You pay a guy if he's balling out like that. No worries about Q being Muhammad Wilkerson or anything like that. I think he's going to be one of the top 3 interior defensive linemen this year. I'm pretty faithful in that. So pay him. We'll see when it happens. I think it happens before training camp. I don't think it's going to be some big long holdout or anything like that. And Hard Knocks is going to happen too, and I think maybe that trickles into Hard Knocks. I just don't want the distraction. Like, you see JFM saying it, and every player on Jets Twitter is pay Q, pay Q, pay Q. So let's pay Q. Like, we haven't had many guys who we can get excited about re-signing in the past however many years. Like, legitimate, when's the last big time draft pick we re-signed? And I guess it's Wilkerson, right? Wilkerson got re-signed, and then that shit hit the fan really quickly. I get we re-signed Jordan Jenkins. Like, we've had no players we've even re-upped. Like, it's really embarrassing. So let's get Q done. Let's get Q done. He's the second best defensive tackle in the league. McDonald Big Mac. Yeah, I think that's the most talked about nickname for him, Big Mac. I like it. The problem is I didn't ask Nani about this. He was very against the 99 number. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I like the 99 number for him, even though he's a little bit more slim. But Big Mac works. Like it. To me, 25 per year is the highest we should go, and just tag him if he's asking for more. Obviously the Jets really don't want to do that. That's not the best message to the team and all that. You want to lock down your guys long term. But to the point where it starts getting crazy, who's asking for 27, 28, $30 million. Yeah, then maybe they have to, but I don't think it gets to that point, Jared. I don't think we have to worry about anything like that. Michael says before we're talking about the running backs, maybe drafting Brees really screwed with Carter. Listen, at the end of the day, it's the NFL, and guys are going to get drafted every year. I get it's a high second round pick or a high value invested into running back past Michael Carter, but it's the NFL. Shit like that's going to happen. Like, you have to perform. You can't, like, that's the Mims argument too. It's like, oh well, bringing in Cole and bringing in this guy really affected Mims mentally. Okay, well, if you're that soft, you probably there's a problem. So I don't think that drafting Brees really screwed up Carter's mental. To me, the only thing that makes sense is Carter was injured last year and we didn't know about it because he did not look like the same player at all. And I know the easy thing is to say, okay, well, the offensive line struggled, they stacked the box. True. Both of those statements are true. But with that being said, he still couldn't even break a tackle like he did last year. Like, his contact balance was really good last year. His ability to break tackles was very good last year. All of that. Last year, you didn't see it at all. Like, he barely broke tackles last year. I don't care what stats say, anything like that. I think I saw a stat of him breaking a decent amount of tackles this year, and I don't care how they label it. I watched, and he did not. So who's a good comp for Izzy? Mostert? I heard Mostert. I think Mostert might be Mostert. How do you say it? Mostert? I don't know how to say it. He might be a little bit more fast than Izzy. I think Izzy has very, very good speed. I don't think he has elite speed. I think Mostert's more elite speed. From what I've seen from him. I think, and it's always different. I honestly, I hate player comparisons because every player is different. I think like Tevin Coleman might be a good one. Not Tevin Coleman of the Jets years, of like the Falcons years. The only difference with him and Tevin Coleman is Tevin Coleman actually lowers his helmet and turns for a little bit more yards than some people think he does. Where Izzy, I want him to be a little more physical at the tackle point. And then past that, Tevin Coleman and him are similar in some ways, and they run the ball. But Izzy's a lot better than Tevin Coleman in terms of his stride in his footwork. Again, people don't really give a shit about this sometimes in the streams, but Tevin Coleman, he really had elongated strides, and he wasn't able to make jump cuts and moves because of that. Where Izzy has a really good understanding of having patient feet that are attached to the ground and able to make cuts. So they're different, but I can kind of see that comparison. But past that, yeah, I don't really know. Isn't Bawden on IR, or was that last year? Yeah, he was on IR last year, or some type of list that he was on the team. Never mind, it was last year. Yeah. JFM could be a trade candidate not till after this year, though. I don't know what his contract's after this year, but I could see it. Like, well then, yeah, no, you could see it because like right at a certain point, you have a ton of edge rushers. Like, okay, re-sign Huff, re-sign Lawson. You don't necessarily need him as a pass rusher, and you're hoping that JJ can develop into like a full-time run stuffer role, which I think he already kind of has that down. Who is your other run stuffer in that instance where he's traded though next year? Is it McDonald? Is it Clemens? I don't really know exactly. So that's an interesting thought. It definitely could happen, but I see JFM probably being here and guys like Huff and Lawson not being here. And then they probably draft another guy in the first round next year. So the Triforce is complete yet when Sabo came in. Jared doesn't get talked about enough how crazy we said Packers fans were for suggesting they would get a first. Got to take an L on that one. Yeah, no, like at a certain point, you had people out there saying like, oh, you're going to get a third round pick and be happy with it. And again, black or white with people. There's a gray area. If we win the Super Bowl, or we compete for 2 years, which we haven't done in many, many years, who really gives a shit about the trade conversation? I get that. I get that argument, but then there's the other side of it saying, well, yeah, regardless of what the result is, the process wasn't great because we gave up too much. Both of them are true. The process was not great. I think they could have given up less. Do I really care at the end of the day? Slightly. I'll care next year when we're going through the dry months of February and the beginning of March and all that stuff. We have no first round draft pick to talk about. So like, what's your draft content going to be next year, guys? Because you guys are all psychopaths in here. All of you are diehard Jets fans. I've seen you guys around streams and my stream for years now. What are we going to do in April next year? Talk about free agents and who might be available in the second round. Like, what's the point? Assuming we have hopefully pick 64. We have pick 64 in the second round. Like, we're really looking to 64 guys. I don't know. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, no, we took the L a little bit for sure on that. It is what it is. It's a factual statement to me, Jared. I know people will try to twist it and all that stuff, but they didn't win. They'll win the trade. Like, yeah, we can get into semantics, but they give up too much. I don't think they had to give up as much as they did. They did. It is what it is. Right. So Nicholas Joseph, Knicks need a fucking shooter. I'm over Randall. Yeah, I know people were really down on Randall. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, Knicks fans, but really down on Randall last year. We're a little bit more high on him this year because he's performed better. But it seems like a lot of you think he's like a regular season guy and not he kind of bitches out a little bit in the playoffs, which seems to be true. I really do like Brunson though. I really like the way that guy plays. And also what the hell's his name? The white dude number 55 on your team. I like the way he plays too. He plays pretty hard. I would team hustling for the ball and stuff like that. I appreciate that in basketball because not everybody does it. So Junior Jet, watch the experiment and all the doubters. And when our Salah blueprint works, everyone will adopt that deep. Look, like Jay, it's not. I don't think you're breaking ground here. Everybody would love to have an extremely deep group at any position, especially edge rusher. I get that, but to a certain point, like you played a first round pick last year, 27%, and now you just brought in another guy. So like, you're going to have a bunch of guys who are first round picks playing 30% of the reps, 20% of the reps. You have a guy who's making, $15 million a year who's going to play 50% of the reps. You have another guy who's making $15 a year or $13 to $15 million a year who's going to be playing 55, 60. You have Q. Like, at a certain point, players got to produce, even if they are playing a higher snap percentage, right? So Jets chaos. It's going to be fun watching Rodgers play. When is the last time we had a QB where we can say that? Jeremy, I can't speak for you. The last time I was excited about a quarterback was Brett Favre. I think that's going to be everybody's answer with that question. But it's been 15 years since we've been excited about a quarterback. 15 years since we've been even like average. And people are going to say the Fitzpatrick thing. Obviously, that was a 1 year wonder, and he was just chucking up, freaking jump balls to Brandon Marshall in the end zone. Like, look at his touchdown against the Giants. Look at his touchdown against the Colts. Like, it just he wasn't as good as some people thought he was. So I wasn't necessarily excited. And then you see him ask for the bigger contract from the Jets, and would they cave in and whatever. And then he gets signed back to the Jets, and I'm like, dude, he's gonna suck this year. And then we sucked. And I remember I went to Arizona that year, and we were losing like 27-3. Like really early on in the game, and I was just sitting there in Arizona. I'm like, "Fuck! Like, why did I come here? Like, why? Like, what is wrong with me?" But I love the Jets as do you guys. So it was a good time. But keep moving on. Are you guys worried that if Garrett Wilson gets hurt, our receiving corps become yeah? But what group in the NFL doesn't lose their number one wide receiver and become at least average? Even if the Bengals lost Jamar Chase, they're still average. Like, is T. Higgins and Boyd enough to say they're above average? I don't think so. So that comes with every team, Trey. But to me, it's more and again, knock on fucking every piece of wood you guys have in your room. I don't know if I guess at the desk, probably fake wood, but it's more about Lazard or Davis, and I still think that range true. Like I think that when the Jets are healthy, they are why the hell is this not? Sorry, I'm trying to do multiple things at once. So I'm not going to figure it. Hold on. Let me just text my wife real quick. Hold on. My wife's trying to get me to order Indian food right now. I'm streaming. So I don't know if I can order Indian food while I'm streaming. I got to enter my address, my credit card, and all that shit. So she's got to order it, whatever. But yeah, about Lazard and Davis, if one of those guys go down, it's more of an average to below average group. If you're running out Hardman as your 3 and Cobb as your 4, you're getting to below average range there. So that's my concern with the group is those guys, and that's why weeks ago before the draft, I was really talking about a wide receiver 5, whether that be a Cobb or a guy in the draft, because let's say Lazard or Davis were to go down for a game or two, which most likely they will. If you didn't have Cobb, now you're talking about Wilson. Let's just say it's Lazard, Hardman, and Mims. You guys want Mims as your receiver 4 for 11 personnel heavy team, a league? I'm sorry, I can't. Now, could I a couple of years ago when I had more faith in Mims? Sure, but not at the current moment. So it is a concern. Not even Garrett Wilson, really. It's more about the number 2 and 3 because they're most likely going to go down at some point. At least Davis is going to go down, right? Hopefully not. Matt. Like Jeremy, right? It's not. Is it the worst idea? Like, I know people are gonna be like, "Oh no, he's gross," but would you right now take Matt Ryan or Zach Wilson for a game? I'm taking Matt Ryan. I'm sorry, I am. I know he looked terrible last year, but with a better team, hopefully he could be better. Now, would I prefer Teddy Bridgewater or maybe Nick Foles? I don't know. But yeah, right now I would take Matt Ryan over Zach Wilson as a backup. Realistically. I know he sucked that year. I have to watch more. Maybe I would watch him. Never mind, he's gross. But on the top of my head right now, I would say him. Every injured player will tell you that they'll be ready to play week 1 if they don't rush him. I hope they don't rush. Oh, I'm talking about Breece Hall, Michael? Yeah, 100%. Like, right? We need to win games to get playoff positioning, but play Breece Hall when he's healthy. And I think the Jets are smart enough not to run out their superstar running back when he's 85%. Like, let him heal up. We have enough. Not only at running back with Knight and Carter and all those guys, but we also have we also have other options on offense. Like we have, you have Conklin, you have the receivers and Wilson and all that stuff. So it's not like, oh, well, he's out and we can't transition to maybe throwing the ball a little bit more for those couple of weeks. Like it's going to happen. So Nicholas Joseph, you guys hear the Hogan? Did you change your profile? I'm pretty sure Nicholas Joseph had a different profile picture. When you guys change your profile pictures and stuff, it really, really fucks me up. So keep your shit the same. You guys hear the Hogan interview, how he joked that him and JD thought their phones were broke on the first 2 days of the draft. Sounds like they really definitely wanted to trade out. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, and how many times did you hear, oh, well, if these guys aren't here, they're going to trade down? It's exactly, you saw what happened. They wanted to trade down potentially, and they couldn't because you need 2 to tango. And this wasn't a great draft class. So the whole trade down stuff, unless there's a quarterback there worth taking, and maybe that could have been a Will Levis, but obviously we saw that he went and did he go in the second or did he went in the second round, right? Did he fall to the third? I forget exactly what Will Levis, but I don't really care. Woods to replace Shep. Jets Chaos Jeremy, go check out him. Does food reviews and stuff, which is fun if you like that stuff. And again, if they're with the defensive line, if they're going to do full blown hockey rotations at the defensive line, it's a mistake. Just you can't do that. You have to put Woods in for run stuffing situations and Jefferson in or JFM in for pass rush situations. If it's a full blown rotation like it was last year, I'm gonna have serious problems with the coaching staff. That's a very, very big oversight in my opinion. GVH, agree with Nania and Blewett. I'll change on defense got to happen due to personnel. Yeah. But at what point does it impact efficiency in a negative way compared to last year's? You're thinking too much about this one, GVH, because last year their rotation was a hindrance to me at least in terms of the defensive line rotation. Just the whole defensive line rotation, because at certain points you had key downs where it was Solomon Thomas, Nathan Shepard, and I don't know, Jacob Martin and somebody else. You cannot do that. The key guys got to be on key situations. And now another added element is Woods is a run stuffing guy. Can he pass rush a little bit? Sure. When he actually gets good leverage and bull rushes, okay. But obviously he's not ideally a pass rusher for you. So they need to do individual substitutions more than group substitutions this year. They absolutely have to. Pittman, number 66. I like the number 66 for him. 2 6s, 2 Ps, 2 Ns. Got it? All right. I like the number in general, right? It's was that Willie Cologne wore that, right? Did anybody wear that before Willie Cologne? Was that Faneca? I think Faneca might have wore that number. I could be wrong though. Could be wrong. Hope Hardman makes me forget more. He won't. I'm sorry, he won't. Moore is a better player than Hardman. Hardman he's a gadget guy. He's a deep threat, but he's very, very raw in terms of route running. His punt returning is iffy at best to me. His hands are iffy at best to me. Moore is the better player than Hardman. Again, I'm just going to try to shoot it straight to you guys. I know some other streamers like, oh yeah, he's better than Moore. 100%. Look how fast he is. He's not. There's just no way. There's just no way. Now maybe he'll outproduce what Moore did last year, but in terms of 1-for-1, who's a better player? Moore is the better football player than McCall Hardman. I'm sorry. I don't think anybody who actually watches would say any differently. I'm assuming they think they will have a lot more. Yeah, that's true, Trey as well. But okay, you had JJ at 27% of the reps or 30 or whatever Nania said it was. So now he's in less, and they're rushing more. Okay, so yeah, the Will McDonald's and the Huffsco of the world, but then the run stuffers, JFM potentially or not. I'm talking about JFM as a DN, not a D tackle, but the JFMs of the world and JJs. Maybe they get less reps now. So either way, somebody who is invested highly into is going to not see enough reps for the value invested into them. Regardless, that's a blanket statement of the whole defensive line. But there's no way that's not true. There's no way. There's going to be a player or 2 or 3 who's not getting enough reps for what they're getting paid, and that's how the Jets build a roster. And I get it. And we're going to love Will McDonald, I think as a pass rusher, and we'll love him even more next year when he's playing more reps and he develops all that stuff. But in a year where you're going for the Super Bowl, at what point is it too much when you have other holes in your roster? So it's just, again, just discussing. It's not like I hate the pick. I get it. I like it. I actually really like the player more than I thought I would. So I think you guys are going to be excited actually watching him on the field for the Jets. Drew says, fellas, can't wait to see how everything plays out this year. So for the first time in a long time, Jet up. Yeah, right. Well, when's the last time you've been I think the last time I was excited going to the season, which I really shouldn't. No, I could have been excited with Gase. I remember that first 3 quarters of that Buffalo game, though. We were up, was it 16 or 18-0? And then CJ Mosley deflects a deep pass from Josh Allen to John Brown. Was his name John Brown? I know there's 2 Browns. There's Marquise Brown and John Brown, right? John Brown deflects it, Tampa 2, tears his groin. Everything's down from there. That was CJ Mosley's probably best game of his entire career, that game. And he tore his groin and he was out for 2 more years. It's like, dude, Jesus. Dude in the middle of a win streak had more. Oh, more. Yeah, the more thing. I'd like to look at Frank Clark if he's ring chasing. No. How many guys do we need? And in my Jets blower, that's too much. That's too much. Like who are you playing on third down then? Clark and McDonald, and you have Lawson, $15 million on the bench. Yeah, if it was, you have Lawson, you have JJ, who's a first round pick. There's way too much money sitting on the bench right there. Jared says not able to watch the rest live. Always love the work you guys do. Keep it up, peace. I appreciate that. Maybe receivers will catch balls and try. That helps. That helps. They definitely will. McCormick, best case scenario, Debo. No. I listen. I get it. Like I was a gadget guy and all that stuff. Like you're looking at a Berrios upgrade, and he offers more as a deep threat just because of his speed. But past that, he's not Debo light. They're not similar players at all. Debo is much more physical, much better at yak. Harbin's a guy who could find lanes and explode through them, but he's not going to create his own lanes and things like that. So this defensive rotation scheme by Saleh as a whole, offenses have to allow you to substitute. Exactly, CD. Like if they were to, if I was any other OC from another team and I saw the substitution of Solomon Thomas, Nathan Shepard, and Jacob Martin come out, I'm hurrying up the rest of the drive. I'm not letting Q get back onto the field. So again, it's something they have to change for sure. Now, again, not trying to shit on McCole Hardman, but this is more true. This is more true than saying he's Debo light. He's an upgrade from Berrios. Yes, he is. I will go. I don't think I'm going very far with that one, but I'll at least go that far. I'll be honest, I was going to watch anyways, but seeing Sabo here is definitely a plus. I appreciate that. The pre-snap going to be crazy. I think the running backs will be big in the passing game, and that's true. I don't know if that's just based on off feeling. I think it's Trey. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but with just in this offense in general, if you look into it, I have my nose searchy right now. It's like I didn't do something in the bathroom. I was just doing that, but so whether it be Keith Carter or Hackett, both of those guys really like to involve their running backs in different ways. But you're gonna see a lot of really quick screens to running backs in this scheme. Based on what I watched, it's not something where they like really slow developing screens. They get into screens very, very fast, and it's a little bit more like an interesting wrinkle with how they do that. Which I think I explained that already in one of the streams. I almost forget exactly how they do it now, but they definitely are heavy with the running back in the passing game. So you're going to see plenty of guys, whether it be Izzy or Michael Carter, whoever get some passes from Rodgers. And the offense in general is like it's either very short east and west stuff, yak opportunities, screens, or deep shots. Like that's what the offense was with Rodgers when I watched it. And obviously there's a lot more intricacies I can get into with that, but being very blunt or blunt about it, that's kind of what it is. So I agree. NY Jets, Florida, Harbin upgrade over Berrios and Smith. 100%. Ruckert underutilized at Ohio State. That is also true. Holy buckets! Look at this tree. I appreciate that when they were here. Late to the party today. Those ticket prices went way. Yeah, I saw somebody post. What was the ticket price for that Black Friday game? It was ridiculous. Now, me. I was a season ticket holder in the past, and I skipped out for a few years. I still probably went to like 6 out of 8 or 9 games a year. This year I committed to season tickets just because I know in the past I had season tickets, and then I realized like, hey, listen, I paid an average I think of like $80 per game, and then it would be week 13, and the game that I technically paid like $80 for would be on the market for $5. So I'm like, I can't keep doing this shit. So I was buying tickets individually to get cheaper prices. Now this year, assuming the prices would raise and we'd be better with Rodgers, that the season tickets would actually be worth it. So I bought season tickets prior to Rodgers joining the Jets. So it was like $1,100 for we're second level, almost like corner end zone kind of. That's where I am. I forget exact. It's like 234 or some shit. I forget exactly what it was. My friend had season tickets last year there, and I joined them. So carrying 5 tight ends seems like a roster spot. Yeah, I don't think anybody. I think Sabo maybe brought this up. I don't think that's the case. The thing that I think would surprise people. I don't see Kuhn Smith in the roster. I just really don't know what he offers in year one. So I think they either carry 3. Maybe they bring in Mercedes Lewis, but something to factor into the 53-man roster predictions with these predictions everybody's doing now. It's kind of the thing going around Twitter right now. Is do the Jets carry a fullback? Again, Keith Carter is very big on that. Is that Jeremy Ruckert's role? Could he do that? Could that be Mercedes Lewis' role? I don't think he moves well enough for that in open space, but is that a Ruckert thing? Or do they have to bring in Baldwin? And then you're talking about carrying 4 running backs, 1 fullback, or if you want to label them the same position group, then it's 5 running backs. So that's stiffed on Cox, in my opinion. All right, yeah, here are those jokes come because I remember that. Been busy as hell. My youngest brother just bought his first house. I've been remodeling it for him. Question real quick: how do you like McDonald's as a player? Oh, I apologize. See, I'm sorry. I got Hawk. I don't know if you jumped off or if you want to watch this back or whatever. I really like McDonald. I like him, and you guys, I'll go through the full. Actually, you know what? Let's and you got like the thing about my player like strengths and weaknesses thing. I think it's very easy to be very generic and say, oh, really good like bend or very good as an edge rusher or very whatever. But I get like very into the nitty gritty for people in terms of like, oh, this guy's foot is a little bit off or his his foot could be a little bit wide or whatever. But I like him. I like him. If you guys want me to give you, I'll give you a full list of strengths and weaknesses, like my list, because my list is solidified now. It's done. But there's a lot of them. Like there's a lot of strengths, there's a lot of weaknesses because I get technical. When you get technical, there's a lot of things you want to write down. So if you guys want me to drop the whole thing, let me know. I'll drop it and I'll say that in a little bit and I'll do it. But overall, I like him. Really bendy. He has the bend, he has the flexibility, he has the burst, he has the length. I think he has underrated strength. I when you're playing at 240, 240 as a 4-4-eye, yes, you're going to look weak sometimes because you're going to get bitched by a guard who's 320 pounds or on a combo block, whatever, or from even a tackle and a tight end, you're going to get bitched sometimes. So that happens. They really did not take advantage of who he is as a player at Iowa State, and that's obviously been circulated around everywhere else as well. So you guys already know that, but seeing him play in like more of like a 9 or a 7, it's going to be really exciting to take advantage of his speed, of his bend. I want to see him set up his pass rush moves a little bit better. There's sometimes he dances a little bit. There's sometimes I want to see him close a little bit more ground to the tackle to make them shoot their hands, so then he could beat the hands, because that's what we're trying to do. You get them to shoot it so you can deflect it. There's sometimes he doesn't close enough ground and he throws his hands, he misses, and then they catch him. So there's little things I want to see him improve, but you have to get excited when you're talking about edge rushers with bend, length, flexibility, and some underrated strength and some solid technique as a pass rusher as well. I don't think he's ever going to be an overly strong, solid, edge setter, but I think with his strength, with his length, playing him more in a proper position on the weak side, defensive end, I think he could be at least a capable run stuffer. And listen, he's 240. His frame, you look at his frame and how he's built out, he can easily gain another 10 to 15 pounds. He's only been playing football for a couple of years now, so I think he'll bulk up to 250, 255, still hold a lot of that bend, a lot of that flexibility, a lot of that burst, and I think he'd be a really good player. Now in year one, is he that? I don't think so, but overall, that's kind of, I guess, my quick thoughts. And again, if you guys want the full list, it's usually something I leave to subscribers. I don't know if you guys give a shit, I'm going to say 1,000 things with it, but if you want me to read it, I'll read it. Who gives a fuck? You're supposed to pay for it, but the diehards are in here. It's 86 people. I've been on for over 2 hours. So let's see. Got stiffed on cocked up. Reason why mims may flash. Not sure what that means. I talk about Beaver. So I looked this up. I was gonna say it, but maybe I was getting like too much into the weeds. But I'm gonna say Darren Beaver is the first thing I looked up. Beaver linebacker. That's what I looked up, and the first thing is like under Cincinnati Athletics. And you have Darren Beaver's linebacker who won a 2020 Dick Butkus Award. So the Beaver who won the Dick Award. Talking about Cox, we're talking about Kuntz. It was going to get into a bad path there, so I stayed away until now when I'm by myself. So can't recall a Beaver, but there's almost always at least one. But yeah, there's Devin Bush. Didn't we have who was that? Like, man, who was that guy? What was his first name? Didn't we draft a safety who was named Bush? Shit, there was some guy like bottom of the 53-man roster who was named Bush who the Jets had years ago. I'm pretty sure it was a safety. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. So I got to look that. Maybe someone a J Bush. I don't know. If AVT is such a captain, why not move him to center? No, I'm not sure what that means. You have to be a center to be a captain. I don't know. You can be a captain at guard. What is this Hackett system? Clearly, it isn't LaFleur or Shannon. Maybe more pure West Coast than what Rodgers likes. So who is it pure? Yeah, like that's the thing. And this is making not an assumption. Like, is any system the same? No, you have wrinkles. You have guys who like to use more personnel groups. You have guys who like to attack more areas of the field. Like guys who are more screen short heavy. More guys who are more deep heavy. So you're always going to have different verbiage. You're going to have different preferences. But is Hackett similar to LaFleur or Shanahan? Yeah. Is it the same exact system? No. But with that being said, like I think it was Jeremy before who brought up Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan played under Shanahan with the Falcons, so I'm pretty sure he would know the system. And the Colts last year, I don't know exactly what the system they ran was, but I know he at least ran that type of system with the Falcons many years, or not many, but a few years ago. And then we talked about Foles. Not 100% sure with that one. And then we talked about Teddy Bridgewater with the Dolphins. Yeah, I think Teddy Bridgewater and Matt Ryan are at least decent fits. I'm not really sure about Nick Foles and all the systems he's been in and what he's been in recently. So we love blue collar players. Fuck Feeney. Tippmann is the mullet what we always wanted. I hope he keeps it. I know he said he's going to grow it out, and I don't Wisconsin waterfall. I don't know. That was kind of cheesy to me, but nonetheless, I hope he keeps it. He's a much better player. That's for sure. Rob V, what's up? I appreciate you being in here. Rob V, Tippmann is definitely starting unless he absolutely trash and can't learn the playbook or something. Yeah. Rob, I don't know if you listened to the whole thing, but I pretty much had the exact same thing a little while ago. That McGovern would have to be substantially better than him, in my opinion. Now, maybe it's less than some other seasons because, listen, the better player should play because we're going for it all with Rodgers. But when you draft a guy in the second round, if they're close, so maybe substantially better is maybe a little bit of an overstatement, but he has to be at least decently better than Tippmann to play him, because then, if he plays at least well enough to beat Tippmann out, you're assuming he's going to lock in that job for quite a while unless he starts struggling, right? So like Tippmann, you'd assume Tippmann would grow, but if he's on the bench, how does he grow? So you'd hope it's Tippmann. Is he going to be a killer running back? Yeah, I really like that pick. I would say I think this is probably 95% consensus that Izzy's probably the best value pick the Jets got. Past that, I would say Tippmann is probably the next favorite pick. Again, this is just where they got those guys. I actually do like McDonald a lot more than I thought I would. AP_14. I guess I didn't see this because it disappeared. I don't know, but 550. Maybe I'm biased, but A-Rod seems to be all smiles and in a great mood. Yeah, like you've heard about Cobb. Was it Billy Turner who said like the dude's like really legitimately happy here? So it's great to see. When's the last time you reported to voluntary OTAs and all this stuff and it is going out? Now I get you don't really go out in Wisconsin because you don't really do too much, but like he could have been to maybe he did. I think he did go to a Bucks game and stuff like that. But like, how many Bucks games did you see him at? How many other friggin' sports? I don't know. There's really not. Milwaukee Brewers. I don't know what else you do there. But yeah, it is definitely nice. You guys are dancing around it. But Saleh is still so unproven to be handed Rodgers to say now go in. I don't know who you're talking about, CD, but dancing around it. We didn't address the head coach or get asked the question about head coach. I don't know what we're dancing around. Yes, Saleh's unproven. Yes, he was handed Rodgers. What else are you gonna do right now? Like yes, would I rather hand Rodgers to Sean Payton or something like that? Sure, but we're not in that situation. So you're not gonna say, oh well, Saleh is iffy. Part of the reason Saleh is iffy because they couldn't necessarily figure out the quarterback. So that's almost like the reason they got Rodgers. If he was more solidified, maybe they wouldn't have gotten him. Maybe they developed Zach Wilson better, and then he's not here. But yeah, he's unproven. And yes, you have to go and get. You have to get You had to get Rodgers to win. I'm sorry, I got distracted again. Wife texted me about food. Now it's Chick-fil-A. So hey, I'll take some Chick-fil-A. You can't deny Chick ever. I don't know if you guys are. A lot of people don't like Indian food. They think it smells like shit, but. I know there's some people who smoke in here, and some people think weed smells bad, and tell me your thoughts on that. So try Indian food. I don't think we'll render Huff. So I don't think they can tender Huff again, Rob. I'm not sure the exact verbiage or the exact reason why, but I don't think you could. I don't think you can with Huff. I could be wrong, but I would look that up if you're thinking about that. Coney doesn't control how many snaps he gets. Penalizing him for that is insane and a quick way to get him to leave. Yeah, I'm not sure if you heard how I said that or how I phrased that before, Michael, but I said the same thing. Like if they're saying, hey, well, we'll pay you for 65% of the reps, it's like, no, pay me like I'm paying 80 and play me 80 then. So Nania Huff doesn't want to get paid, someone will pay him. Yeah, if I was his agent, big listen, pay me like I'm playing the run as well, and then I'll just pay the pass for you. But I'm not going to take if the Jets are offering him $6 million a year next year to play 30% of the reps or 35% of the reps, and then somebody else which is already kind of crazy in terms of the numbers, but just going up top of the dome. And another team's going to pay him $10 million a year to play 70% of the reps because they're willing to take the risk of him in the run game. Then go for that other team. So the Jets are going to have to pay him because he will go to a team who will pay him to play both. Hello, Nathan. And the Finns, like all of our ex-players, they just picked up Croft, right? So they have Croft, they have Feeney, they have Barrios, they have Mike White. I think somebody put it out there, like when we play them in November, that there's a good chance that Mike White will be starting. It's kind of true, kind of true. Didn't we beat the no? That was Halloween game, right? When we beat the Bengals with Mike White, but Rodgers even Pittman called out productions as rookie year NY. That's a good point too. And something I haven't even mentioned, but it's an excellent point. Is Pittman learning from Rodgers, and this goes with a lot of people on the team. It really, really is going to help him because he's the guy and we'll see what happens with who we bring in after Rodgers. I don't want to think about it. I do think Rodgers is here for 2 years, so I don't want to think about this is the first year, so I can really enjoy my life as a Jets fan. So I don't want to think about 2026 and 2025 or whatever. But let's assume Rodgers is here for 2 years. Do they draft a quarterback, or what do they do at quarterback? But Tippmann's most likely going to be the guy who is calling the protections and doing all that stuff when Rodgers is gone. So learning from a guy like Rodgers who sees the field the way he does is going to be huge for Tippmann in terms of his future success at center. So that's a great point. Bring back Quan. I'm completely with you. I have no idea. Like Rob B does, not either. I don't know why the Quan's not back now. Could it be a thing where he's asking for too much and the Jets are like, listen, well, Deion Jones is out there. You're out there. I think there's another linebacker who has some connections too. Is it Deion Jones and maybe it's Miles? I think Miles Jack is still available. Maybe the Jets are fine with any one of those three guys. Maybe Quan's the preference, but he wants $4 million where those guys want 2.5, and they'll wait to see if that gap closes and they sign Quan. Like, there's a bunch of reasons it could be happening where they're waiting. But I want Quan back as well. I just get rid of Whitehead, sign Quan, sign freaking John Johnson. Like, then all season's done. Minus backup quarterback. I'll bet you about that. But that's it. There's 3 holes on this team left for me that I really need to see filled. Cover safety, linebacker, backup quarterback. Now, could I argue, okay, well, keeping Whitehead at strong safety, which I still don't love, Clark as the nickel backer, and then adding just a free safety is good enough for the defense, I would be okay with that, but I prefer just to get got of Whitehead and sign Quan back as well. And then again, backup quarterback, we'll bitch about that for a couple of months. I don't think they do anything. I think they really should. I don't get it, but here's what it is. Tigo said the Whitehead's going to play. Like they rotated a lot where he did play free safety and stuff last year. Should he play free safety? No, he absolutely should not. He's not good in coverage. He's not a good tackler from deep. He's extremely inconsistent, gets locked into the quarterback size, doesn't have great range, doesn't have great ball skills. You saw, like, I think it was a Steelers game. He had like multiple balls hit him in the chest this year and he couldn't catch it. And I know the Bills game, he had an interception. Yeah, it's literally in his chest again. But he has no hands. He's not a good free safety. He's not a good safety. I don't get it. I didn't get it when we signed him. I watched it at first. Oh, cool. Watch the highlight because me, like every other person in this chat, when you sign a guy, you don't like you know him, but you don't. You go to YouTube highlights. We all watch him for 4 minutes. I'm guilty of it too. And you're like, oh, look at this. And then obviously you watch the film after that, which I did and broke it down. And I was like, I don't know. I watched the first game against the Falcons. He missed like 3 tackles on Cordell Patterson. People are calling him an elite tackler. It's the same thing with who was it? Blake Cashman. Everybody said coming out of college, he never missed a tackle. The first game I watched, he missed like 2. So I have no idea who came out with that stat or how, but whatever. Okay. If Moore does well and she, you're okay. A fungus among us, a fungus among us. 9. Okay, goal line. Rob B. Nania with sneaky bata on Uzama. I'm not sure what that means. Fungus. There's a lot of handshakes going around here. We have a fungus and Rob are friends. Hawk is friends with Rob. I like the ties here. I love it. Yeah, there's another one. Say Hawk. Hawk's always greeting people. It's great. Breathes to me. If he's the same guy, he's a game. Yeah, fuck yeah. Of course. No shit, Mike. I love Mike. Mike's one of our big supporters. But yeah, of course. And the sky is blue. Even though it's really not, though. Isn't like a reflection of the ocean. I don't know. Grass is green. I guess it's a better one technically. But yeah, of course he's a game changer. If he's healthy, and for lack of not, I don't want to be negative here and all that stuff. Like, oh, you fucking suck. But Brees was really, really good for like 3 or 4 games. So I get that he was awesome, and I think he's going to be awesome. And I was just on the verge of saying, I think if healthy, he's pretty easily like a top 10 to 15 running back, and that's like being very conservative at probably top 10. But it was really like 2 or 3 games, right? It was a Dolphins game, it was the Packers game, and it was a Broncos game. But it's not like the Ravens and all those other games before that. The Bengals were all great for him. So it was a very relatively small sample size, but I think he'll still be great. I'm just, again, yeah, it has to factor into there. Like, and even the Dolphins, that big gain, he did run for 50 yards where nobody touched him. And then obviously he dragged people for 20 yards after that. But still, and listen, I love Brees. I want to throw that in there. It was 3 or 4 games. I still think he's gonna be a top 10 back. Maybe it takes him a little bit this year, but he'll get back. He's gonna be a game changer. People are gonna hate that I even mentioned. Oh, it's only 3 games we're talking about, but it's true, right? Oh yeah, what's the score of the game right here? Let's see. Actually, I'll type that in real quick before I go to the rest of the chat. Knicks. Okay, 35-32. All right. What about the Pats week 1? Get them early. They usually saw, dude. Rob, I said this. Hawk said this. I want to kick the shit out of the Pats week 1. Now I'm not going to New England. I really want it to be a home game, just to open that season. Clean your hands of the Pats. It's been since 2015. It's been what like 13 games we haven't beat them in. So, and I get the Pats aren't the big bad team anymore. Like they're going to be 4th in the East. They're not going to make the playoffs and all that stuff, but I want an easier game to start, and I think the Pats are an easier game. I get the danger of saying that with Bill Belichick, but fuck it. Like let's kick the shit out of them 48-0, get that off our back, start the year off well, because again, I would love to go out there and say, yeah, we're going to beat the Chiefs, all this stuff, but I want us to gel before that point, and I don't want the Jets to lose week 1. And like I get with the and it doesn't really affect us. We're not on the team, but you guys know what it is. Like I hate seeing the negative Jets stuff out there, and if we lose week 1. It's just it's gonna be bad in terms of like the media stuff. So I just want to kick the shit out of the Pats in week 1 and be done with it. And watch some of those Patriots YouTubers and Twitter guys who are absolute douches. Just fucking cry. Like I can't the Pats anymore, man. It frustrated the shit me last year when we were up. What was like it was 10-0. Michael Carter picked off the ball, got called back. It would have been 17-0 going to the half. That hurt me bad. That hurt me bad. Me kind of like high five, fucking jumping up and down, chest bumping, all this shit. And it was called back. I was like, wait. And I looked, I'm like, no, you gotta be kidding me. And it was such a bullshit call, too. It was so bullshit. That ref waited for way too long. Like the ref literally saw it happen, saw Michael Carter, picked the ball off, run 10 yards, and then he threw it. Like as soon as he realized that Michael Carter was gonna go for a touchdown, he threw that flag. Like that was ridiculous to me. He realized that flag was going to take away a touchdown. And he still did it for that. And it was bullshit, complete bullshit. Oh, that game. Visiting teams won't travel as well this year. Yeah. You don't have to really worry about like what the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Bills a little bit, but there's not too many teams that are going to take our stadium over. And if it does, I'm disappointed in every one of you. Sorry. Because you'll have, and I'm really not talking about you guys necessarily, but like the Jets fans who bitch that the stadium isn't loud enough, but at the same time who don't go, it's like, how can you complain if you're not there to help it? And I get that the fans who have been, seeing this absolute dog shit product for the last 10 years don't want to go and support anymore. And Woody Johnson priced it a lot. I completely get that aspect of it. I do, because I was one of the ones who's priced out and all that stuff or whatever, tickets price raised. But with that being said, you can't bitch about the crowd noise and then not make noise and be there. So you have to kind of hedge your bets if you're not at the games this year. Blewett hates Knicks fans because of how they are, but doesn't root for his boys. Nania and Sabo to feel stoked. Nope, bad friend. Go to Fox Pro. Okay, I'll keep going through the chat. I appreciate you guys throwing so many in here. Our season fell in the toilet once they switched away from the black-white combo. That's just science. No, we lost the Vikings game in that. The Vikings game? We were on a streak with that uniform combo. Maybe they lost the Vikings game in the game after. Then they I forget. But there was a game they lost, and then they started to switch it up. Have a good stream, Joe. Appreciate that. I would go to the next game. Yeah. Week 1 is so unpredictable. It might be a good time to play. Casey, yeah, but like I think Casey actually starts out really, really hot typically for all power. So you might be wrong on Casey, maybe Philly. I don't know how they necessarily start, but the thing is, like, you could bet on them being pretty good teams for the most part. So I rather just play a shitty team. Like I feel much more confident regardless of what could happen in beating the Commanders, the Texans, the even the Giants, the Pats, whatever it may be, over Casey or Philly. I get the unpredictability, but if you had to bet on a raw power, what are you doing? I don't like the black uni with the green helmet. Oh, I agree. I disagree with that. I like black on black with the helmet top, not with the green. I don't like the green helmet at all, really. See, Hawk was gone for so long. Sabo and Nania come back. He jumps back. Now I'm not going to see him again for a while. He doesn't like me and Kyle. It is what it is. Hawk, we can admit that. Hawks swapping them Jays. Drop them Jays out. I don't know what you're talking about there. Okay. Jays are right. I don't know how we got into shoes here. I scrolled past something. 13s and 4s my favorite. Okay, we're getting to shoe talk. Yeah, I'm getting really I'm not hating him. A lot of shoe talk. I'm not a big shoe guy. I don't know. I like comfortable shoes. That's about it. Are you high on MC2? I think he's so overrated. Gets burned a lot. No, I'm high on MC2. He's a good player. Does he get beat sometimes? Yes. Is playing slot ridiculously hard? Yes. Like playing slot corner is much harder than playing outside corner. It just is. It's very hard to be involved in the run game. You're in the box. You have two-way goes. Go left, go right. Obviously. You could take it vertical from the slot in some offenses. It's very, very tough spot to be in. So you're going to see corners get burned sometimes. But listen, and sometimes Reed did too, and he caught up. Sometimes Sauce did, and he caught up. But slot sometimes it gets exposed a lot more because it's a lot of guys' first reads, and you notice it. It's always in the broadcast and stuff. So yeah, MC2 is good. I'm starting 2-2s in. At 2-2s for Qs? For Q? Oh, dude, not 2-1s. Oh, 2-1. Okay. Yeah, Rob. I think you're crazy. And usually your takes are pretty good. At least 2-1s, the bare minimum. Most kills 5. Euros 34-3 up against the Pats at Gillette. Will Salah keep piling? No, I wish I get it because Bill Belichick threw when he was dominating us in some games. Most recently, last year? When they beat the shit, not this 2 years ago, I guess at this point, he did that to the Jets. But would Salah do it? Probably not. Like Salah, take the high road. He's that type of guy. But I wish he's a little bit more of an asshole. Lock myself out of the house. Thanks for helping me pass the time while I wait for my girlfriend. Just break your window. Is it your house? Is it a rental? I don't know. It kind of depends, right? If it was my house, I would probably just break my window and get it replaced. Depends, I guess, also on how impatient you are and how far your girlfriend is away. Can you imagine if you broke your window if your girlfriend was 5 minutes away? Now if she's 2 hours away, different story, right? Secrets of boots. Joe, catching you late, but this draft was a change of pace for us since it's been our Super Bowl for the past several decades. Thanks to JD, we need superstar starters. Year 1 of pipeline. Yeah, gone are the years of us depending on 7th round picks to start. Randall had a great season. Horrendous playoffs. We need another star for Brunson. Yeah, I like Brunson. I could root for that guy. Again, I'll never root for the Knicks, but I can like players. I love probably my favorite Knick of all time is Jamal Crawford. I love Jamal Crawford. I love that guy. Stevie Francis on the Knicks for a little bit too. I love Stevie Francis is another guy too. All that era, KG and Stevie Francis and Tracy. That's when I was watching basketball a lot. Obviously, Vince Carter's my favorite player of all time. Best dunker of all time. Hey kid. We have Kenya Martin, Keith Van Horn, Alonzo Mourning, all those guys. Rodgers on the Jets. I forget his first name is Richard Rodgers. Maybe was it? I don't know. Mutombo. Right? Who else was on that team? A couple other guys I'm forgetting. Do you think Zach will be an NFL QB under A-Rod for 2 years? No. I don't think. At the end of the day, Rodgers is going to be here for 2 years. At the point where we'll still have Rodgers. Yeah. So Rodgers will be going into his second year. We have to determine Zach's 5th-year option by Rodgers' second year. So what are you going to see from Zach that's going to make you pick up a big contract for him? I can't. I don't think it's going to happen. People are messaging me from comments of me talking shit 2 years ago, like, where are you at, boy? People are messaging me. Wouldn't you message people from comments they made 2 years ago, like, where are you at, boy? Maybe I'm reading that wrong. I've been podcasting for a while now because for people who don't know, for the 79 people who are in here, you guys might actually be interested in it because you guys are the diehards who listen to this stuff at least. I do that Patreon with Buffalo Jets fan, and we were just talking prior to this. So I talked to him for an hour. Now I've been on this stream for almost 3 hours. It's been like 4 hours of talking. Garrett getting hurt would kill us. Yeah, of course. He's our best player on offense. Minus Aaron Rodgers. Could that be true at the end of the year? Could Garrett Wilson be a better receiver than Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback? We expect Rodgers to be the 4th, 5th, 6th best quarterback in the league. Could Garrett Wilson do it? Probably not. But could he? Yes, he could. If he get past, like what? It's like Tyreek Hill. You have Diggs up there. You have Chase up there. You have Kupp up there. You have Justin Jefferson up there. But I think Garrett Wilson finishes in the top 10 of receivers this year. Top 10. Yeah, I think he could flirt with the top 5. It depends on how often he's targeted. Because the thing is, like, you could say, okay, yeah, he's going to get 500 catches and 18,000 yards, but the Jets are going to be relying on the run game a little bit more than people realize, because you have some leads you want to rest Rodgers, and they built the running back group for it. So hope you hid your eyes from Oh yeah, you pay for tickets. I went to game 1, sneakers to boots of round 1, obviously, because game 1, round 2 they were in Carolina, but the that game sucked, man. Starting off the playoffs with getting your ass kicked by the Rangers, I think it was 2 power plays in a row where they got one shot on 2 power plays. Like, what are they doing, dude? Hopefully Corey steps up. Corey, it's not about Corey's play, it's about his injuries. Hopefully Corey can be healthy. I think he's underrated by fans. I really do. Or he is underrated by fans. I'm not going to say I think. He just is. He's a better player than people realize when he's healthy. It's just Zach Wilson never completed passes downfield, so when he did a couple times and one of them was dropped, it's like, holy shit, Corey Davis is terrible. But I think Corey Davis could still be, as a number 2, that 800 to 1,000-yard guy. And I know people are going to think that's crazy. He had 10 games last year, he had 400 yards, something like that. But his last year in Tennessee, he was like 10 yards or 20 yards, 30 yards, whatever it was, short of 1,000. That was with Tannehill. So who's to say with Rodgers you can't get 1,000? Like, is that something crazy to say? I get it was years ago at this point, but it's not like Corey Davis is old, right? He's 27, so maybe the injury stacking up all that. But to say Corey Davis get 900 yards this year is not crazy to me, if healthy. Now, is that crazy to assume health? Probably. So I would guess more around 600-700 maybe. But even if Becton has a good year, sneakers to boots. This is my fear too. I think the Jets draft a tackle next year as well, because if he plays well enough, I think he's going to want some moolah. I do, which he should. I just think it's going to be to the point where it's passing what the Jets are willing to pay for 1 year of production. And like, who's to say? And the weight stuff, we can argue this whole thing forever. But do the Jets see a guy who at a certain point was at near 400 pounds and saying, okay, well, he's down to 340 this year, but what is also happening this year? A new contract. So do the Jets fear that they pay him and then he maybe balloons up again, maybe gets injured again? So I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening. Mikey Mullins, I think I just kind of answered this, but obviously a good question. Don't forget about our tight end. Yeah, good running backs. I think it could be a top 10 group in the NFL, and I think our tight ends are better than some people realize. Maybe not Uzama, but Conklin's a better receiving tight end than some people realize. He's a really good route runner. Well, it's an easy pick, kind of talk about that. And just like having more experience as a pass catcher, yeah, sure, you love that. But it's just something Pitt didn't do with him. So I don't think it's something he can't do. I think he was willing as a pass blocker when I watched him. I think he actually squared guys up pretty well. So I liked Izzy what he did in the past game, but he just wasn't asked to do it a lot. So it's not saying he can't do it, right? And like we have Michael Carter for that. You have Brees. It'll be fun. Brees is actually a good route runner. I think they underutilized him in that way last year, actually. Steven, Benefon years with the Devils. I don't think so either. And 1,000%. Steven, 100%. That's what I've been saying. Like, I want them to compete at this point after they went down 2. I was like, let's make it 4-2. Like, let's just compete and show that we're kind of like with this squad in terms of the Hurricanes, because they're obviously like one of the better teams left. They had a really good regular season because we are not necessarily a team it's not even not necessarily. We are a really young team. Like, and Bratt obviously has to step up in some things like that. But like, we have Heischer, you have Hughes, you have all these guys. So the Devils are going to be good for quite a few years, in my opinion. It's going to be, as long as the GM doesn't completely fuck everything up, you're hoping at least with some general competency, we should be a good team for quite a few years. So I'm not like beaten up about it. Obviously I want to win another game though. And maybe, let's see. He's just rambling like a moron. I tuned in for intelligent football conversation. He's on drugs. Okay, Elliot Patterson. Where's your channel? Where's your channel? It doesn't look like anybody agrees with you. Nobody commented on it, so nobody also refuted that. Play the Chiefs week 1. They're guaranteed to start at home. Yeah, I said that before. Maybe you weren't here. If Becton plays well, I could see That's tagging and trading here. Totally agree with your double stick. Okay. Yeah. So we're at the end of the chat. Appreciate you guys. It's been about 3 hours. I'm a rambling moron, so I apologize to that guy, I guess. Not really. But I appreciate you guys. I'll be back in about 2 weeks with Kyle Smith on my side. We'll talk about the schedule, talk about a bunch of things. I have plenty of film reviews coming to you guys. I have about 15 that are prepped that I just have to record. So a lot of reviews are going to be coming back. Or the reviews are going to be coming back when I come back from vacation. And we have all the way from Aaron Rodgers having 3 or 4 reviews on that one, like a 4-parter, all the way to like Wes Schweitzer and Tristan Colon. So we have I have a lot of reviews to drop. So I appreciate you guys, and I will see you in about